Greetings, ANC3D. Welcome everyone who is coming into the meeting. We're going to get started here in just a minute. We do have a quorum. I also see Commissioner Davis here.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. All right, it is 7 o'clock. We are going to start here in about 1 minute. We're going to see if we can give a minute or two for Commissioner Cologne Roosevelt and Commissioner Simkowitz to join us. Greetings, Officer McElwee. All right, since we have a quorum, I'm going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everyone to ANC3D. The first item that we have to consider is the agenda. So the motion on the floor is to approve the agenda. There will be amendments. Do I have a second? Commissioner Nowak seconds the motion. We are under official actions removing the MedStar Georgetown resolution. And MedStar Georgetown is going to give a mini talk or some information under local institutions towards the beginning of our meeting. And then we are changing up the order. We are going to do the bell ringer bike race as the #1 item under official actions. And under commission business, we are going to do the ANC resolution on the digest proposal first, then the budget, then the annual report. Any comments? Okay. All those in favor of the agenda as amended?
As amended.
Unanimously approved. And Commissioner Cologne Roosevelt, he's on the record as voting yes on that also. So he is here. Thank you. Good to see you. All right, moving right along. We are going to hand this over for our MPD update. Officer McElwee, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Commissioner Duncan. Can you hear me okay?
You sound loud and you sound crystal clear.
I'm here at the 2nd District tonight. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for inviting MPD. For those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Tony McElwee. I'm assigned to the 2nd District as your traffic officer, and I also attend all your community meetings to provide you with our crime report. So I'm going to start off with the 205 crime report. For the last 30 days, we had 21 offenses in your community or in PSA 205. We had 1 burglary, 12 theft from autos, and 8 thefts. I'm going to start off with the burglary. The burglary occurred at the CVS store on September 25th at approximately 12:44 a.m. Subjects attempted to, well, they broke into the CVS located at 4869 MacArthur Boulevard in an attempt to remove the ATM machine inside. While they were inside, they attempted to remove it by using some tools and some equipment. Their entry into the CVS triggered the alarm system, which notified MPD, and MPD officers responded. Just as the MPD officer was responding, they made their exit. They did not get the ATM, and through a preliminary investigation, the suspects were last seen fleeing eastbound in the 4800 block of MacArthur Boulevard. Our 2D detectives are investigating and looking for leads and looking at cameras in the area to try to link the subjects and get an identify the individuals. But that is an active and open investigation. Let's talk about the 12 theft from autos. There were 4 vehicles left unlocked out of these 12 vehicles. There were 8 vehicles that had their windows smashed out, and 10 of the vehicles that were involved in the theft from autos had backpacks or purses in clear view. 4 of the thefts from vehicles occurred in the 4900 block of Massachusetts Avenue at the same time, which was on September 10th, and this was during the afternoon hours. In fact, the majority of the theft from autos occurred along Mass Avenue between 4800 block down to the 3700 block. We don't know if it's linked or connected. We're looking at everything. We're going to consider that a possibility. Two of the theft from autos were from construction vehicles, and tools were removed and stolen. Please remember, I always put this out there. Please remember to remove all valuables from plain view and to lock your vehicles. This obviously helps you and it helps us out as well. Also, remind your contractors to try to park as close as they can to their job site, maybe your driveway or right in front of your home. The suspects involved in the construction vehicles, they actually are cutting the locks to the vehicle to gain access inside, and they're removing tools. Moving on to the thefts, we had 8 thefts. Most were packages. 2 of the thefts occurred at the CVS located at 4869 MacArthur Boulevard. The suspects entered the store and removed laundry detergent both times, put them into the bags, and they passed by the register and out the door without paying. We are reviewing the cameras, and our detectives are looking at that as well. I have some good news. I was informed by District Detective Nick Oliver. He advised us that an individual named Stephen Roger is in custody and is currently incarcerated in Montgomery County. He has actually been there for a while in Montgomery County. He just had his trial last week and is expected to be sentenced to 5 years. For those of you who don't know what Mr. Rogers did in PSA 205, he was what we call a squatter who broke into 2 homes on Foxhall Road and a home in 5100 block of Macomb Street. Not once, but twice on Macomb Street. So he will be put away for a while. Detective Oliver also advised us that they have identified a suspect who is wanted for a burglary to a residence inside one of the Foxhall Crescent communities. This subject, we know who he is, committed several other burglaries throughout the 2nd District. 2 of them were in PSA 205. The other ones were in the surrounding PSAs. We were able to establish that this suspect was committing these burglaries at the homes of people who were actually away on vacation. We're not sure how the suspect was able to determine when people were away. Something the detective is going to try to interview and see if he can gain that information. But with that said, I want to put it out there that the MPD will conduct periodic vacation checks of your home while you're on vacation or away. All you have to do is give me an email, send me an email, and I will put my email in the chat at the end of my presentation here, and we'll be happy to come out. It's a free perk, so take advantage of that. Other than that, not to hold everybody up, but traffic enforcement, we didn't have any major crashes. We did focus in on the area of 4500, the 5000 block of MacArthur Boulevard for speeding. I partnered up with Officer Preston Proctor, one of my traffic officer colleagues, and we were out there from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Monday, Thursday, and Fridays for the main part of the month, as well as we returned back around 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. So we've kind of changed it up a little bit. Also, I received numerous complaints about the bike zones, about people parking on the bike zones along Arizona Avenue. We are monitoring that, and anybody that's caught will be issued proper notice of infraction. With that said, I'm happy to take questions, concerns, or complaints.
Commissioner Cologne Roosevelt?
Yeah, for the thefts from autos on up and down Mass Ave, were they all unlocked vehicles, or were there any like smash and grabs? Or you said they were cutting locks. How does that work exactly?
All right, well, the cutting locks, I refer to the construction vehicles.
Okay.
Just the 2 construction vehicles, like their pickup truck or their vans, and they have like a padlock that they lock the back door, and they put bolt cutters and cut those locks and gain access inside to the van. I'm looking at our stats here. The 4900 block of Mass Avenue, 2 of the vehicles had their windows smashed out, and 2 were three of them had their windows smashed out and one was left unlocked. As I said earlier, when I began speaking about it, what we're seeing is, and what they're taking are purses. Like, I think there was like 3 or 4 purses that I saw in the reports, a backpack, laptop computers. So again, as I said, please clear all these out of your car, put them in the trunk, take them with you. But thank you for that question there, Commissioner Roosevelt.
Commissioner Simkowitz.
Commissioner Cologne Roosevelt, I think what they're doing is the thieves are cutting with the saw the hard locks that are placed on contractor vehicles, and it's very hard to get around that. I mean, they're cutting through steel, and that's how. Am I correct, Officer McAwee, that that's how they're getting into some of these?
That's one of the ways we suspect.
Yeah. So the second thing is, what in Montgomery County, the guy was sentenced to 5 years in jail. Do you know what he was sentenced for? What the crime was?
That I do not know, and I got this information from Detective Oliver. He just had his trial last week, and I think he's awaiting sentence.
Okay.
I don't know much. I don't know anything about the trial, but Detective Oliver was pretty confident that we're not going to have a problem because this guy's going to be tucked away for a long time.
Good. I wish we acted more like Montgomery County here in DC with regard to punishment for people. Thank you.
Officer McAwee, do you have an update on any potential charges in the death of Patty Bollinger?
Well, that's a good question. And Captain Haskis could not make it. He wanted me to convey his apologies for that. He's on another meeting. He's acting Cruiser 12 for the week. But he said that he has heard nothing yet other than the information that he put out. And he literally told me he's calling down there every day to try to get an answer of what's going on, if there's going to be any charges. So to answer your question, as of right now, we still don't have that, because just to give you an idea, in-house accidents, we'll investigate. Any accident that involves a death goes down to our major crash unit, and they work with the U.S. Attorney's Office. So we have to kind of reach out to find out what's going on. But we will eventually get your answer out to you.
Okay, we did hear from Haskis last meeting that the U.S. Attorney's Office had declined and that it was with the Attorney General's office.
Yes.
So just everyone who's on the call, rest assured we're following up on this. Commissioner Nowak, did you want to add something there? You're muted.
I actually have a different question that came in from one of our neighbors who is in a noisy environment, put his question in the chat. Good evening, Tony. Mr. Barber talks about the MacArthur and Arizona intersection, and specifically around blocking the box, and wondering if this is part of your enforcement action plan for that intersection.
And the blocking the box I'm taking occurs mainly between rush hours, evening and AM rush hours.
Presumably, he doesn't specify, but yeah, presumably. Every day, this is his quote, every day I see a significant amount of running red lights, obviously dangerous to pedestrian, cycles, and other drivers. So that's option or issue number 1. And then in dense traffic time, that same action leads to blocking the box. So I think that you kind of, if there's not a lot of traffic, they're running the red light, and if there is, then they're stuck in the intersection. So
I know the DPW DDOT, they have their traffic officers out there trying to pull traffic. But I will give, I know it's been getting congested, and while we're on that intersection, it's forcing them, it gets so congested, it's forcing the commuters onto Sherrier Place, Carolina Place. And that's another thing. I didn't want to bring it up, but since you brought the intersection up.
It's actually,
Yeah.
this is all on our agenda later. We're taking some official action of some recommendations to DDOT. So we're going to discuss that. And if we think that there's some enforcement that could do, maybe we'll give you a call and have you sit out there a couple of times. The thing is, when there's a police car there, nobody does it.
But you sometimes sit in an unmarked car. Am I remembering correctly that you have that option as well?
Yes, I do. And we will go out there, and I do go out there, but we'll go out there and give it what we call special attention. But okay. I will say, if you're you're putting a case together about the congestion out there. There has been, and I can tell you, I see it, I've been out there for 20 years. We have a lot more congestion since they rearranged the patterns, and it's pushing the traffic, as I said, into the other neighborhoods. But yes, and I'll also let my colleagues know, our PSA 205 officers, they can park there in their marked cars to act as a visibility and a deterrence during those
Thank
hours.
you.
You're welcome.
I see no hands in the chat. Any commissioner hands up? I don't see any. We are going to let you go because we have a long meeting tonight. Thank you so much, as always, for coming.
Real quick, thank you. And I just want to put it out there real quick. We do have a ride-along program. Commissioner Andrew Davis, I was with one time. If you want to participate, again, I'm going to put my information in your chat room, my email. Have a
Highly
great night.
recommended. It was fantastic. Great learning experience. Thanks again for that, Officer McElway.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to be moving through our meeting fairly quickly tonight because we have a packed agenda. We are going to hear from the Mayor's Office of Community Relations, also called our MOCR. Hope Cousin.
Hello.
There you are. Miss Cousin has been fantastic for us. If you are a commissioner that you need something, she is our person. Thank you. Go ahead.
No, thank you. Two quick things. One, on a slightly somber note, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but it is also Domestic Violence Awareness Month. If you or know someone or you yourself need assistance, please call the official hotline at 844-443-5732. It is available 24/7, and I will put that in the chat. On a more positive note, leaf collection season is starting soon. It starts on the 28th of this month. It ends on February the 8th. There will be 2 complete passes during that time, Monday through Saturdays. And I will put the link in the chat as well, dpw.dc.gov/leaf. If you use that, you'll be able to track when they're coming, whether or not they've come. You'll be able to keep a check on them, whether or not they've done what they're supposed to do. So with that, you'll also be able to follow them on Twitter. Look, Ward 3, Leaf. I remember it very well in the clearinghouse. So if you follow them on Twitter, Instagram, I highly encourage you to download the MyDPW app if you haven't already. That's a great way, another great way for you to keep track of it. They also have a newsletter, and of course, there's Nextdoor. And I'll put all of that information in the chat. And that's it for me. I said I will keep it short and sweet. And of course, I'll be here the remainder of the evening if you have any questions, comments, or concerns for me. Great seeing you all. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to be posting that leaf collection information on the listservs too. Commissioner Nowak?
Just adding on to that, one great service from DPW for those who are not on social media is that you can register your cell phone number and they will text you with updates of when your street is expected to be swept. So that's an option for those who are not Instagram or Twitter users.
Great. All right, up next, Councilmember Fruman's office, Ward 3. I think Lauren Lipsey is here tonight. Lauren, if you want to turn on your camera.
Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Sorry, I'm not able to turn on video right now. But I do have an update. Oh, you can see me?
Yeah. Sorry, you don't have to have your camera on if you don't want.
Okay. Only because I'm like reading what I'm supposed to read today. So I want to make sure that everybody is aware that the council member sends out a newsletter every 2 weeks, which is a fantastic way to stay in touch with the actions that he is taking, especially now that the council has returned from recess and they are back to getting legislation drafted, passed in time for the end of this legislative term and then before the start of the new one next year. So I'm going to share a link to the newsletter in the chat so that everyone has access to the most recent one. And it includes legislative actions related to ERAP and other descriptions of housing and his priorities there. cannabis regulation, which I know is of great interest to 3D, electric vehicle infrastructure, and then designated the red-backed salamander as a state amphibian of DC in an effort to just underscore our need for states' rights and statehood. So I'll share that. We're very excited about leaf collection. We were excited to be able to meet with the DPW director yesterday as he answered our questions as a constituent service team. So we're ready to take all of the inquiries, but DPW does have a fantastic customer service center that you can contact yourself should residents have any questions related to leaf collection or really anything DPW related. They're really enhancing their abilities there. And so I will also share that information. And
Thank you.
happy to,
We also have a question for you.
yeah.
Go ahead, Commissioner Cologne Roosevelt.
Yeah, I was wondering if the council member was thinking about taking any action regarding like the issues we've had at OUC over the past couple of months, the Office of Unified Communications. Like people have been on hold for like 10 minutes. There was a child that died because it took too long for EMS to get there in Ward 3 in Chevy Chase, I think in like August. I was wondering if he was supporting any like independent oversight or whatever he's doing to try to fix these problems with
That's
really
a very good
important.
question. That is something that's really important to them and him, and he's working with his colleagues in the council to find ways to address that. So I can certainly find out the specific actions he's taken, but as his other colleagues have introduced various pieces of legislation, he's certainly supportive of those efforts till now. And if you have a specific request or interest for him to look into, happy to pass that along as well.
Thank you very much for attending our meeting. We are going to move on, and I know we have a lot of people who are coming to speak. So our next item is our ANC3D Commissioner Election Roundtable. We are going to be going through the commissions in this order: 3D02, 3D03, 3D05, 3D06, 3D07. Then we're going to go back to 3D04, and the one contested election we have is 3D01, and we're going to save that for last. And then to give everyone a heads up, under our local institutions, we are going to hear from GW and AU, and then we are going to hear from Georgetown MedStar, the German Embassy, Sibley Hospital, the Field School, and Georgetown University, in that order. Okay, I am 3D02, so I'm just going to jump right into it. My name is Trisha Duncan. I am running for ANC 3D02. I have served one term as chair of this commission. I am running unopposed. I have enjoyed my time here, and I have focused a lot of my efforts on helping our neighbors with issues and navigating the government bureaucracy. I've worked on transportation, a lot on illegal construction. I've testified before the Zoning Commission, the Board of Zoning Adjustment, the council, you name it. I really, really, really care about our neighborhoods, and I will be honored to serve again. Thank you. All right, on to 3D03. Commissioner Roosevelt.
Hi, I'm trying to keep this quick because I know we have a lot to get to. But yeah, it's been great serving for the past 2 years with everyone else on this commission. I'm really proud of all the work that we put into the Wesley project and the affordable housing coming in the Palisades. You know, this is stuff that like has never been done before in 3D, and I'm really excited to see this project move forward. I'm really proud of what we did there, and I'm really excited to keep working with all of us, all the people on this commission. It's been incredible. I've learned a lot, and I'm ready to keep going. So thank you.
Thank you. So 3D05, Commissioner Horn.
Thank you. First, it's been an honor and a pleasure to work with all of our ANC commissioners. Everybody has a different area of expertise, and I think together we get quite a lot done. I'm a lawyer, so I've concentrated on legal issues, most of them about construction. And I've written legal memos for the Board of Zoning Adjustment, the Zoning Administrator, the Department of Buildings, and the Public Space Committee. And you might think the DC statutes and regulations would be clear about what builders can do, but actually there are many gray areas. And sometimes the rules are pretty clear, but the regulating agencies are either unaware or they don't understand or they don't enforce the law. I think ANC3D has won a lot more regulatory battles than we've lost over the past 2 years. And even when we don't get exactly what we want, our efforts at least improve what's going to be built. And I've been proud to be part of that. Thanks.
3D06, Commissioner Nowak.
Thank you, everybody. Marilyn Nowak. I am proud to serve in Single Member District 3D06, which is the area west of Foxhole, all the way to the river and everything south of Whitehaven Parkway and the German Embassy. I am a business person during the day, and therefore my interest in the ANC and in the evenings tends to move in that direction. I have been active with bringing new businesses to our MacArthur Boulevard byway and our Main Street, and making sure that they can do those in a way that offers as little disruption as possible to the neighbors. So how can we find a way for businesses to come and build and thrive, and yet manage through problems like parking and noise and sharing space with our neighbors? So it has been an honor to serve as I come to the close of my first term and look to doing so in another term with your support. Thank you.
Thank you. And that 3D07, Commissioner Simkowitz.
Hi, my name is JP Simkowitz. I'm in my third term. I never wanted this job. I was roped into it by the former commissioner, who I didn't even know that well. He said, "I think you have some sense." I don't know if that's true or not, but you would do a good job for the community, and that's what I've tried to do. I'm very sad that no one wanted to run against me, because it's hard to do this job, and I didn't want to have this position open. And I think a lot of my other fellow commissioners are in the same boat. I hear all the time about people complaining about the government, but nobody stepped up to the plate, either against me or against any of my other commissioners, except for Commissioner Elkins, who's running opposed. I think people need to be active in their community, and that includes running for commissioner, because this is a very time-consuming job. And I thank my fellow commissioners, even if they didn't really want to do it again, for stepping up and doing the role that really helps the community. So thank you to all of my fellow commissioners.
Thank you. I'm very sad that Commissioner Davis is not running again, but we do have a candidate, Mark Blumenthal, who I believe I saw his
Yes.
name on there.
Yes.
He is. He
He's
is
here.
running for 3D04, and we are going to give him, an extra time to introduce himself. Go
All
ahead.
right. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner Duncan. Thank you, commissioners, for this invitation. My name is Mark Blumenthal. For those of you who don't know me, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've lived in DC for nearly 40 years, for 23 of that in the Palisades, with my wife, who some of you know, Helen Burston, our 2 children, now both in college, attended Key Elementary, Basis Public Charter. My daughter went to School Without Walls. My day job for all the time I've lived here in Washington has been in polling and survey research, which is a profession in which I have worn many hats. I was a campaign consultant for many years, then a blogger and journalist. I co-founded the site pollster.com, which was acquired by the Huffington Post. And for the last 8 years or so, I've worked with 2 companies, SurveyMonkey and YouGov, on the surveys that we do for news media clients. I'm running because continuing a theme, I learned literally a few days before the filing deadline that the 3D04 seat would be open, and that no one had stepped forward to take on this important responsibility. So I did. I've served on ANC3D's Transportation Committee for going on 5 years now, where I gained a pretty good understanding of how the ANC interacts with agencies like DDOT. As a commissioner, I think in addition to that interest in transportation, I expect to make constituent service, helping our neighbors navigate the district's sometimes frustrating bureaucracy a priority. So though I'm running unopposed, I'd very much appreciate the support of those of you in 3D04. It'll be an honor to serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Simkowitz, did you want to add something here?
Yeah, what does the polling show in the race of 3D01?
No clue. It's very inaccurate in 3D01 from what I hear, and 3D as a whole.
It's hard to reach those Wesley Heights neighbors. All right, thank you very much. So for 3D01, Commissioner Chuck Elkins is the incumbent, and he is running against Andrew Heimert. Andrew Heimert is on an airplane and cannot be here, but he emailed us a statement, and I have gotten the okay from Mr. Heimert and Commissioner Elkins to have Commissioner Davis as a neutral third party to read Andrew Heimert's statement. But this is Andrew Davis, who is not running again, is going to read his statement for him. And I'm going to leave it up to you, Andrew, if you want to turn off your camera or not.
Sure. So just to kind of minimize any confusion, there are a lot of Andrews serving. There are about 3 or 4 on the Transportation Committee, which is always a lot of fun. First of all, let me just say thanks to all of you. It's been really just such a pleasure serving with you. Sorry, I've decided not to run again, but I think it's going to be in great hands with Mark. I know him well, and it really has been so eye-opening and quite a joy. So I've really been enjoyed meeting all of you and look forward to seeing you around the neighborhood. So let me kill my video, and then I'm going to just kind of change my name here to eliminate any confusion. I'm going to read Andrew Heimert's statement here. It won't take long. You can make sure I spell this correctly. There we go. All right, so imagine my voice is that of Andrew Heimert's. Hi, my name is Andrew Heimert. I'm running for the ANC seat in 3D01. I seek to be a new voice for the single-member district. The incumbent has done a good job on many issues, and I agree with him, but he has served 8 years already on the ANC, and I believe it is time for new ideas, priorities, and a fresh approach. I've lived in Wesley Heights on Klingle Street for nearly 20 years with my wife and daughter, who is now in college, and I place a high value on the character of Wesley Heights and the surrounding area, and want to make sure we maintain that and continue to preserve and enhance the character through protection of trees, improved access to our local parks, including Glover Archibald and Battery Kemble. I know I'm not alone in valuing these resources for walking, hiking, and connecting with nature in our increasingly urban environment. I also want to help ensure schools serving the neighborhood are well-resourced, not just Mann Elementary, but also the new MacArthur High School, which I hope becomes a gem in the DC public school system. I want to make sure that the next generation of our neighborhood is even better served for education than it has been in the past. Finally, I seek to keep pushing DDOT to make the streets and sidewalks of Wesley Heights and surrounding areas safe for all. I'm a driver, a bus rider, a pedestrian, and a bicyclist, and I want to make sure any one of these groups is well served by safe, efficient alternatives for whatever mode of transportation best serves their needs. I've been a member of the ANC's Transportation Committee since its inception nearly 5 years ago. I participated significantly to push DDOT to promote safety-enhancing projects, including safer sidewalks, appropriate traffic calming to help reduce risks for road users and pedestrians, and seeking to ensure that bike lane projects are both safe and carefully designed to minimize adverse impacts on neighbors and local businesses. And most recently, I've been working closely with the ANC to push WMATA and its redesign of bus routes to maintain similar or improved levels of bus service to our neighborhood. I've also pursued these goals as a member of the American University Neighborhood Partnerships Transportation Working Group, helping to ensure AU lives up to its commitments to minimize transportation-related impacts on the neighborhood. AU is a significant member of our neighborhood and wants to be a good neighbor, but only by communicating concerns and needs can the relationship be the best possible. Finally, I want to commend my opponent, Chuck Elkins, for his dedicated service over 8 years on the ANC. As I said in the open, it is time, however, for SMD 3D01 to have a new voice. I hope you vote for me, whether by early mail or in person, or on election day. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you for that. And finally, we are turning the floor over to Commissioner Elkins.
Well, thank you, Madam Chairman. Well, yes, I am the old voice, and I do have a worthy opponent. I called Andrew as soon as I heard he was running, and I said absolutely no bad feelings. This is an election. It's a time for elections are time for choices. So let me just tell you why I've served now for 8 years. I am asking for another 2 years, and I enjoy doing it, and like to do it again for another 2 years. So I've tried my best to try to keep constituents aware of what's going on in DC government. I post frequently on the listservs for that purpose, and I've tried to help constituents in our area to deal with the city government. Because I have served for 8 years, I am on a first name basis with a lot of people downtown. It just happens as you work that many years with these people, you get to know them personally, and that's particularly in the Department of Transportation, the Department of Buildings, the Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection, the Zoning Commission. Just as an example, I'm meeting monthly now with the director of the Department of Buildings and his top staff dealing with illegal construction. They don't always agree with me, but at least, and that's true of all these agencies, at least I think the interests that I'm trying to represent, oftentimes our neighbors, they at least hear these voices and agree to consider the points of view put forth. I've also a founding member of the partnership with American University, which is an important part of our the district that I represent, since it borders our district and the university has a major impact. I'm the chairman of the and have been for a good number of years, the student life off-campus committee, which deals with cases where students invite their 100 closest friends over for a party and forget when it's 12 o'clock at night that maybe they should turn down the stereo. Basically, I've enjoyed serving. I appreciate everybody's support in that, and I ask for your support this time.
Thank you very much. That concludes our ANC roundtable. I know this can sometimes feel like a thankless job, but I think it's super valuable. And thank you everyone on here for serving. All right, we are moving on to our higher education institutions. And we are going to start with GW. And while we're calling up Kevin Days, I would like to announce he was recently promoted to the Executive Director for Government and Community Relations. And Gabriela Sosa, who I'm not sure is on today, was also promoted to Government Relations and Stakeholder Engagement. So congratulations, Mr. Days.
Thank you, Tricia. Thank you. It's good to be here. Thank you. I have a very quick announcement. Just one quick thing I want to do, tell you about. The university is sponsoring an event on the Mount Vernon campus called the Harvest. It's called the Vern Harvest, and it'll be on Saturday, October 19th from 2:30 to 5:30. And we're inviting not only GW students and faculty and staff, but we're inviting the larger community to come on campus during what is the Alumni Families Weekend. And they'll be celebrating with pumpkin carving and apple cider and games and more. So I'm going to put all that information into the chat. And then I also want to say that you'll find out about these kinds of events and more by signing up for our newsletter. I put a plug in for our newsletter every time I'm at these meetings. It's an important way to stay in touch with what's going on the campus. I'll drop that link in, and then I'll put my new title and my contact information in the chat. If there are ever any issues, concerns, you can reach out directly to me or to Gabrielle. We're happy to be members of this community, and we're happy to be responsive to the concerns that this community raises. So with that, I'll give back the bulk of my time and see you guys on the 19th.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And again, congratulations.
Thank you.
Up next is American University, and I think Mr. Jason Millison is here.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Tricia. And hello, everybody. Just so you know, I haven't been on that many of these calls. I've started at American University back in August, but as far as these calls, it's either going to be myself. I'm Jason Millison, the Director of Community Relations, or my boss, Laura Marks, the Associate Vice President of Government Relations at American University. Similar to Kevin's message, American University's Community Relations team is here to basically make sure that all the things that we have going on campus and all the great benefits of living next to a university are realized by our neighbors. And so we really want you guys to engage with the Community Relations Office if you have any issues that are student or faculty or just, general living close to a campus related. But more than that, we just want you to enjoy the fact that American University is your neighbor. So I will be leaving our information for our newsletter in the chat, as well as a link that can show everybody our upcoming events. We had an amazing turnout in our late September outdoor movie night. We had over 300 people show up to our outdoor amphitheater to watch Inside Out 2, which was great. Really was an awesome event for capturing the last few bits of fall weather. And we're going to do something similar coming up on Wednesday, the 16th of October. At 6 o'clock, we will be at the main campus doing a full moon arboretum walk. American University is known for being one of the best natural arboretums, one of the most beautiful urban campuses in the U.S. And we have our grounds team and maintenance crew that has been there over 20 years combined of experience. And they basically have created a really cool history, connecting with campus, connecting with nature, walking tour that'll be really fun to experience in the moonlight. So that's Wednesday, October 16th. So next week at 6 o'clock at AU. And I'll leave all that in the chat as well as my information. Thanks.
That sounds fantastic. And we see a friend has appeared in your background.
Oh, yeah,
So it's
that's
adorable.
Bodie. If he hears me talking, he gets jealous. So he loves a little attention. So thanks, buddy.
I love it. I love it. All right. Thank you very much. We are moving on. We're have invited Georgetown MedStar to come. And if we could spotlight Miss Regina Woods, Ali Rashofsky, and Miss Jo Ellen Carpenter. Hopefully I got those names pronounced correctly. Commissioner Simkowitz had observed some things that were a little bit troubling to him. And so we have asked Georgetown MedStar to come today to let us know what the law is and what their policies are on discharging patients. So we're going to let you give hopefully a brief overview or talk, whatever you would like to say, and then we're going to open it up for questions.
Thank you, Tricia, and good evening to everyone. It's good to see you all. Again, we're joined by my colleagues, and we would like to talk with you. We appreciate this opportunity to talk with you about the policies and procedures on patient discharge at MedStar Georgetown University Hospital. So knowing your tight agenda, we're going to jump right into it with Jo Ellen Carpenter, who is the Senior Vice President and Chief Nursing Officer at the hospital. I will say that Ali is our hospital counsel for MedStar Health. Jo Ellen?
Thank you, Regina. And also, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak to this group. What I wanted to do was address from a medical perspective and our policies, how we manage patient care through admission to discharge. The grounding principle for all that we do is that we evaluate patients' medical needs and their admission, their discharge, and how we manage their discharge is based on those medical needs and, of course, social needs to the degree that we can address them, and other things that impact the ability for a patient to care for themselves after they leave the hospital. We, through multiple assessments by a large multidisciplinary team that includes physicians and nurses and case managers and social work and therapies and such, when our patients are deemed appropriate by their physician to discharge, we plan that discharge based on what the patient has presented to us with what their typical situation is when they leave the hospital, and what we can do to help to facilitate that the best that we can. Many times patients come and need to go to a different situation when they leave the hospital. We facilitate transfers to long-term care, to rehab, home with services, hospice, if that's indicated. Sometimes patients come to us with an acute situation and leave with whatever we have treated in that acute situation, coupled with chronic medical issues. Many of our patients also are affiliated with agencies in the community that we make contact with and hand off to when a patient is ready to return to their prior situation. Some of these patients are homeless or undomiciled and have affiliations with different shelters, different charities in the community, different organizations in DC that manage their care in the community. One thing that we're very, very careful with, and my colleague Allie can speak to this, is our patients have the right, and we respect that right, unless they're deemed incompetent, to make decisions about their care and their discharge. So at any point during the care that we provide, a patient can choose to not participate in that any longer and leave if they'd like. They can also leave against a medical advice, and they don't have to. We can offer options for different kinds of services and such, and patients have the right to accept that or not. It is the truth that we have patients who are leaving our hospital, come to our hospital unhoused, undomiciled, and they leave in the same way. And that oftentimes is their choice. And whether we and we will make every opportunity that we can, take every opportunity that we can to provide any services that we can wrap around that patient and help them post-discharge. We make appointments with clinics, we make appointments with physicians for referrals, we make transport patients to other facilities or to where they want to go, where they typically stay, and we make every effort for that to be as safe and secure a situation as we can make it. And patients do take us up on that sometimes, and sometimes they don't. And we do the best we can with these situations. What I want you to take away from that is that we do not discharge patients without a lot of evaluation of their need and planning to the degree that we can for their post-discharge needs. Then that includes patients that leave from the hospital admission, from our clinics, from the emergency department.
Thank you, Joellen. Allie?
I don't have a whole lot to add. Joellen has done a wonderful job summarizing the really individualistic approach that we take to discharge. It is a responsibility that we don't take lightly. We have tremendous social work and case management support resources dedicated to that. We do have patients sometimes that are not interested. Sometimes we have patients that were brought to the hospital by, others, and they don't want to be there. And we do our very best to facilitate a handoff to supportive agencies, but we have to stay within the scope of our sort of patient care, treatment, healthcare provider role as best we can, while we do facilitate the handoffs that we're able to make. So I hope that makes sense.
Thank you. Tricia, does
Thank
anyone
you.
have any questions to add?
Yes, we have some questions. I'm going to call on Commissioner Simkowitz.
Yeah, this was my resolution, and I'm not claiming that Georgetown University or MedStar did anything wrong in this case. A lot of people are brought to the hospital through shelters, 911, family members, And they don't need, from what I've seen, and I've lived in this neighborhood off and on since the 1980s, and I walk past this hospital almost every day during that time. And I've seen people put out on the street by hospital security guards, including the gentleman that I have uh, uh, put in the resolution. He was escorted off the property by the hospital security guards. I walked by at 4 in the afternoon on my way to Georgetown Visitation to see my niece's soccer game. On the way back from Georgetown Visitation at 6 o'clock after the game, the guy was still there. I went home, had some dinner. At 9 o'clock, I walked by to go to the movies. He was that's when he was being escorted, where he must have gone back to the hospital, and the security guards were putting him back on the street at the bus stop. And then at midnight, when I was coming home from the movies, he was still there, and that was a cold night, and it was raining. And I walked by at midnight, and he was still out there. So that was what, 8 hours. I think the hospital has to do a better job in conjunction with the city. Again, every hospital in America has the same problems. I'm not trying to blame Georgetown. I think the system needs a better handoff, where if someone is unhoused, as this gentleman was, and I actually talked to him, he wanted to be in the hospital, but he was discharged, probably because he didn't have any acute medical needs. But he was put on the street, and he was not given directions where to go. He was very confused at the time. I asked him, where did he want to go? And he didn't have an answer. He said, I'm homeless. I have nowhere to go. So I think that what we need to do as a society is work better with the hospitals and the government to do an effective handoff. Is there anything that we are not doing today that we could improve on?
I can tell you that for situations where individuals are unhoused, after the hospital has made their determination that that is in fact the case, there is a procedure, I believe, that's in place that's working with the Department of Behavioral Services. So we work with them. We also provide information to those patients about shelters they can go to. I'm not sure what arrangements are made, but I think they're given tokens so that they may travel there. So we're not just leaving them out there. There are procedures in place. Sometimes the patients just don't want to go. Sometimes they just don't want to accept the assistance that we are
I can tell
offering
you
them.
from talking to this guy, he was an elderly man. He was in need of some kind of assistance. I think not not acute hospital care, but he did not have any tokens. I called the shelter hotline, and they could not take him to a shelter because the shelter beds were filled by midnight when I made the final call that I made that night. And he was left to stay on the bus stop, and that's not a covered bus stop on entrance 1. It's like an open air bus stop, and it was raining. And I asked the shelter people what they could do, and they said they'd bring him a blanket and some sort of tarp, which I assume that they did. But that's a very sad thing to do to the most vulnerable person in our society. I mean, this is a very elderly man. I don't know how old he was, but he was certainly over 75, and he was confused. He couldn't articulate really much of anything other than he didn't know where to go and didn't know how to get there. And so I think that's the tragedy. So he wasn't a person, to my knowledge, and I wasn't there in the hospital with him, but he wanted to be back in the hospital from what I could tell and from what I asked him. And he was taken off the hospital grounds. He was there were 2 hospital security guards escorting him from where the new building is, 200 feet to the bus stop. And I witnessed that with my own eyes. So to say that some people don't want to be in the hospital, this guy wanted to be in the hospital. He just didn't meet the criteria to be an inpatient there. So again, I think that we should work with the city so that you have an exact person to call, or an agency to call for every such person, where, you know, they might not need a hospital, but they need something else rather than the street, because it's inhumane to put somebody on the street right there at that bus stop.
And we don't disagree with you on that. I
Right.
think that it's the tragedies that we and unfortunate situations that we are witness to on a daily and weekly basis would, you know, make all of us, you know, take pause. I don't know the details around this situation. What I do know about the processes that we have at Georgetown is that we have very compassionate, a very compassionate team. And if the patient was determined to be ready for discharge, then we would have given him information about, you know, where to go. We would have offered to take him where he wanted to go. But again, I don't know what his particular situation was. Just
But
because of
I've seen this in numerous cases, and with this guy, he wasn't in a condition to know. I don't think he was on drugs. You know, he might have been suffering from dementia, but he did not know where to go. And I asked him if did he have anything from the hospital. He didn't have any discharge papers or anything like that. So I think with a regular person that might work, where you give them discharge instructions and you tell them where to go, and they may be able to do that, but not this guy. And remember, I've lived here for 5 decades, I think, 80s, 90s, whatever. And I see this all the time, and not just at Georgetown Hospital, but you see it at GW downtown. I don't go to Sibley that often, but you see it, you know, all the time where in an urban hospital where the hospital just does not have the capabilities to deal with an inpatient care for these people, because, you know, you have to you know, triage your care, and in triage you have to, you know, make sure your beds are available to people that really need it rather than people that you know, can be helped in another location through a clinic or something like that. So I don't want to blame Georgetown for doing anything wrong here. I just want to get to the bottom of what we can do in the future with a city agency to have an effective handoff, and that's all I'm trying to do with this resolution.
Commissioner Nowak?
I just want to build on what Commissioner Simkowitz says. The troubling thing that struck me about the photographs that the commissioner took and circulated, beyond everything that he's described so far, was that the patients in question appeared to be in hospital gowns. And so I am curious as to the protocol for providing patients with street clothes, even if they have not arrived in street clothes. Are you putting them out? Are you discharging them in only hospital garb? And is there an alternative? Is this the standard, or was there just a miss here as these patients
I'm
departed?
not to disagree with you, but in looking at these patients, they appear to be in street clothes to me. And we do have clothing that we provide to patients. If they come to us in soiled clothing, or if they need additional clothing when they leave, we do provide. We've got a clothes closet that we provide clothing to people. It's not our practice to discharge patients in gowns. And
so, Commissioner Simkowitz, I'm going to defer to you, and maybe I'm mixing up that it wasn't in the photograph. Maybe you referenced that one of the patients was in a gown. I remember that.
So in Commissioner Nowak, I've seen many patients over the years that have hospital clothing on. The gentleman in particular, the elderly gentleman, was in jeans and a sort of some kind of sweatshirt or something. The lady that was speaking in the foreign language that I saw both at the bus stop early in the day and at the entrance later, she was crying in another language, and the only thing I could understand was it was like help. It wasn't, you know, obviously I didn't understand whatever language she was speaking, but she was whimpering and wailing, and you know, it was tragic. But to answer your question, I've seen other people discharged to the street in hospital clothes, which again is heartbreaking.
Well, also, I did look at the photos. These particular patients were in street clothes, and there are people who leave the hospital before being discharged in their gowns. That I've actually witnessed that happening. I'm going to go ahead and call in Commissioner Elkins.
Well, I just wanted to say, first of all, I think that Ms. Carpenter, your description of what the hospital does goes way beyond what I would have thought. I think you've got a lot of services there that I think we laymen, I would speak for myself, I myself as a layman, would not have expected. So first of all, I just want to say that I think you're going way beyond what maybe we would expect of a hospital. So let's start with that. I still think that at least these couple of cases, and I'm taking Commissioner Simkowitz's word that he's seen other cases. So let's assume we have a more generic problem here. There seems still to be a gap between where your rather extensive services end and the other city services pick up. And that's the part I think that we as ANC commissioners and as a community can be concerned about. It's not to say that your hospital should do more, but maybe there needs to be something to keep from having too much of a disconnect here. If a person is confused and not really fully capable of figuring out where he's going, we're not saying that's your responsibility, but having him out on the street in the rain isn't a good solution either. And I'm sure you agree with us about that. So the question, what could we do, if anything, as a commission and concerned neighbors, to see if we can't close some of this gap between the other services in the city and your hospital. And the second thing I would just add, this is more minor, but what should a neighbor do when they see a situation like that? Is there someone that they could call the hospital and say, this person's out here in the rain, and we know it's not really your responsibility, but none of us want him out here in the rain. Couldn't he sit in the lobby or something, at least until the morning when apparently the other services can connect up with him? I don't know. That's a second question, but I think the main one is we represent a community, and in our case as ANC commissioners, a government that it looks to me is not matching up with the services that you're providing. And that's a problem, and we need to fix it, I think.
Allie, can you discuss the FD12 situation a bit? And that's our connection with the Department of Behavioral Health Services.
Well, yeah, I know that we're probably limited on time, and I don't want to throw too many sort of complicating factors into the mix here. I understand that this conversation has come up from a place of deep compassion for the community members that are amongst us. And for that, we deeply sympathize. There are so many complex issues when we are trying to address the individual needs of every person that comes through the door. And so, it's true what you've acknowledged about Joellen and the incredible team that supports the patients that come through the door. No doubt there are probably instances where patients wind up on the street in hospital clothes. We acknowledge that patients who have capacity to make decisions for themselves can leave if they want to, and no doubt sometimes they are they sort of get out of the hospital and then don't know what to do with themselves. And so I appreciate that the question on sort of posed is what can the commission do to encourage the city to develop better wraparound resources? Because at the end of the day, we're a hospital and we provide hospital services, and we simply cannot fix the homelessness problem for every individual. We cannot fix the food insecurity problem for every individual. And sometimes people cry on the street and we don't know why, and they're doing it near us. And I don't know if we can fix all those problems either. And so I don't know what the answer is. You know, we have worked with the city as a hospital to try and align some of our policies, like Regina, you were mentioning, with sort of the ways that we can extend our care a little bit longer until the city is able to take over. Regina mentioned the FD12 process, and it's a whole conversation for another time, but that previously we were only able to keep patients who posed a danger to themselves or others for 48 hours. We've been, you know, and at the conclusion of the 48 hours, if there was no involuntary placement bed for them, we are obligated by the law to release them to the street, and then we call a service, and that service is supposed to come and pick them up and evaluate them themselves. But we're limited in terms of, under some circumstances, truly how long we are able to keep people if they don't want to be there. And so there's, you know, when we see these individuals in the photos, there's so many complex variables that go into any one person's case, and it's really, really challenging to make generalizations. But I understand that if we're going to make generalizations, it is it's appropriate to think in terms of how do we encourage the city to further develop wraparound services so that we can, you know, all of us have an option as private citizens, as healthcare providers, to tag in other resources when we're sort of out of our scope of care.
Thank you for that. I would just like to add that ANC3D is really good at making suggestions to our legislators on ways that we can improve services. We can advocate for more funding, this, that, and the other, from a personal experience. So perhaps this is the beginning of a larger conversation we have with not only Georgetown, but also Sibley, who is also here in our ANC, about ways that we might be able to advocate to the city of, look, this is a problem, we need more funding, or we need more personnel, and that sort of thing. Yeah. We are pretty good at making suggestions.
Great.
That would be welcome. That would be welcome.
I saw Commissioner Horn's hand up. He put it down. Did you want to say something, Commissioner Horn?
Well, Commissioner Elkins sort of asked my question, which is, it just seems that there ought to be somebody that Commissioner Simkowitz could have called and that we could call if we saw it. And it's not the hospital, it's some entity that's contracting with the city, no doubt. And, you know, apparently the resources don't exist, but we should see if our, you know, Councilman Fruman could start a conversation about it. There's not resources, and we're a reasonably affluent city when it comes to, you know, something like this.
Yes, I agree. In the interest of time, I am going to say that this is the beginning of a conversation that we would be delighted to have with you on maybe some things that could change. And we really, really appreciate you coming and explaining your policies to us. We appreciate it. Thank you.
We appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we are moving on to our construction update from the German embassy. And Herr Speicher, I hope that I pronounced that right.
Hi, Speicher. Hello.
Herr Speicher, hello, how are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you?
We're good.
So,
How's it going?
yeah, thank you very much, first of all, for inviting me again to the meeting. I hope I will be able to participate in actually all future meetings. It's extremely interesting for me also, and since the German embassy is in this neighborhood, there's quite a lot of information which I can pass on to my colleagues also. So thank you very much for having me. Yes, my name is Kai Speicher. I'm the head of administration of the German embassy, and we are having a construction project. We are remodeling our so-called west parking lot, which is located. You can't see it actually coming from Reservoir, or almost can't see it from Reservoir Road. It's kind of behind of the building or on the side of the building. When I was at your meeting the last time, the project still hadn't started. Now finally, last Monday, it started very slowly with some measurements and markings and of construction boundaries. And also they removed the pavement of the ramp which leads to the parking lot, and they put a lot of gravel, how you call it, these stones in order to avoid mud and slipping of the trucks who will carry away the old pavement. So this looks very good and worked out very well. And this week they started removing also the old pavement of the parking lot upstairs. Went very smoothly, I have to say, and also didn't do much noise. Nobody complained at the embassy, who is of course directly about too much noise. It was very easy to remove. So I'm hoping that this goes on like this. I was already afraid they would have to use the big hammers and things to open the pavement, but this was not the case. It went really fine. Tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, there will be some noise because unfortunately we have to remove a few trees which are there, older trees. Of course, there will be new planting in the future, but they are in a way, and they will cut them and shred them on site. So this I'm sure it will make some noise, but it's only tomorrow. It's only during the day, tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. We were able to get additional parking space along the residence garden along Reservoir Road on the side of the embassy, for the embassy staff, and up to now it worked out very well. I think I think we were a bit lucky also that the German school had a week or two of vacation, so many of the colleagues were on leave also, and didn't work at the embassy, so there were less cars than usual. So it was really without any problems. These first 2 weeks of work, there were only, I think, 5 or 6 workers on the premises, and we talked to them, of course, and asked them to, if possible, to park their cars further outside and to shuttle. And we also allowed 2 or 3 cars of the construction workers on site on the construction site. They were full. They obviously followed our recommendations, and so it was only 4 or 5. So there were 2 cars on site, full with workers, and it moved fine up to now. So let's see what will happen next week, when the vacation of the German school is over and more colleagues will be at the embassy. But I'm very positive with this, and it looks pretty good up to now.
Does anyone have any questions? Commissioner Nowak.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Fischer.
Of course.
We have received a complaint from one of our neighbors on Reservoir Road that I forwarded along to your office.
I received it.
And I'm wondering, what is the best way to get that information to you and to work with our neighbors? You know, I think the thing that you and I both want is to minimize the disruption to our neighbors, especially those closest to you on Reservoir
Yes.
Road. So
Yes.
what is the best protocol for that?
Well, I will put my name and my direct email address, which you had, by the way. You had the correct address. the email reached me directly. And but I will put it in the chat so that and my direct telephone number from at the office. So if there is anything, the neighbors can contact me directly. I also had I as far as I know, as I remember, I put this also in the letters which we sent to all the neighbors. Another one contacted me today also by phone, another neighbor, because there were last week on one day and today there were embassy cars parking on the neighbor's side, so not on the side of the embassy, but on the neighbor's side, and it was very easy to find out what the issue was. Last week, Wednesday, and today we had vaccination days for embassy staff and family members, and since the side of the embassy was kind of closed and it or packed with parking cars, they chose to park for half an hour on the other side, which is allowed, and then they left again. So there were a few embassy cars for a short period of time on the neighbor side, and but left again. Then it was not a permanent parking during the entire day. The embassy staff is advised to of course stay on our side, but with the call I received today, I will again send out a note to all the members of the embassy not to park on the neighbor's side, only stay on the side of the embassy if they have to park outside of the embassy.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and we'll see what it's like this week with the full embassy staff back.
Yes,
So let's
yes.
hope that parking area is long enough.
Yes, I hope so too. But we gave a map to all the colleagues with parking, which is further away, 15 minutes walking, where also the construction workers and others also park during the day, and that's a possibility. It's a 15 minutes walk, but that's not unreasonable, I guess. So they won't park directly in this neighborhood.
Do you feel like
All
you're
right.
getting support from your contractor partners, the management of the construction firms in terms of managing the parking of their staff members?
Well, we are talking to them, and also next week a new phase will start. We will talk to them again and just to update them, and I have the impression they are listening and trying their best, and let's see. We will keep a close eye on this issue.
Okay,
Definitely.
thank you.
All right, thank you very much for coming, and you are invited next month. That is the first Wednesday in November 6th, I believe.
Perfect. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, thank you very much.
Bye.
Okay, we are moving on to Sibley Memorial Hospital. They are here to talk about the Behavioral Health Emergency Department. Miss Raina Jordan.
Yes, thank you so much for having us this evening. I will
Welcome back.
also add, yes, good to be back. I am also joined this evening by my colleague Caroline Shatba, our Vice President of Operations. So she'll be presenting with me, and so if she could just be added to, just so you can see both of us. Hi, Caroline. So this evening, we will provide an overview of Sibley Memorial Hospital's plans to seek a CON to create a behavioral health emergency department on its campus. We have a lot of information for you today. We're going to try and keep it brief, given how thick the agenda is. But by the end of this presentation, we hope that we can obtain a letter of support from this ANC. Oh, and I'm sorry, I actually should share my screen. This would be helpful to show you guys what's going on. It says it's disabled, so as soon as it's lifted, I'll share. Okay, thank you. And can everyone see my screen? Okay,
You're good.
thank you. Great, thank you guys. So our approach to this emergency department is to make sure that all patients receive the care that they need when they come to the hospital. And I really want to put emphasis on all. This means the staff, patients who are undergoing this psychiatric event, and as well as all patients who are in the ED. The method and way in which we will achieve this is by having a separate environment located adjacent to the ED for patients who are presenting with a primary psychiatric diagnosis and medical psychiatric co-diagnosis. And that will allow us to create a secure environment for everyone in our emergency room. So this benefits, the benefits of our behavioral health ED will be felt in a number of ways. We expect to see a reduced patient wait time. We see expanded capacity that will allow for expanded capacity so we can care for our current and projected volume of patients, taking pressure off of the ED by being able to move our psych patient to an environment that is appropriate for them. Additionally, through the use of purpose-built spaces, we'll have things such as an intake room to make sure that we can safely admit patients, quiet consult rooms to help de-escalate, open care bays and seclusion rooms, and nurses who are working with that area who have complete visibility of the care area, and like a back door for safety as well. All of these will be regulatory required support spaces, but will allow for constant observation, harm reduction, and just to make sure that everyone in this environment is receiving the care that they need. Now I'll move to Caroline Schaffa to explain a little bit more about our project.
Thanks, Raina. So the location, as Raina mentioned, will be in the building B, where our emergency department is located on the ground floor, and it's currently an administrative space right behind the ED. So there's connectivity, which is very helpful, but as Raina mentioned, it's a separate space. Next slide. To introduce you to the floor plan here, the yellow shading is our existing emergency department. And if you see up in the upper right corner, if you're familiar with our campus, that's the little loop for the ED entrance. The green at the left bottom is a transition and staff areas, and the proposed behavioral health wing is there in the bottom left. So you kind of get an idea of the scope of the size. Next slide. So where we are in the timeline, currently we are wrapping up the design and planning, which has been quite a long process, and we've involved a lot of content experts, including our physicians and nurses that work every day with behavioral health, as well as social work, and some other partners in the health system. We'll be looking to submit our CON in the coming months, and then moving into permit in the next calendar year of CY25. Construction would not begin until halfway through the calendar year of 25, moving into activation at the end of 2026.
Can you let everyone know what a CON submission is?
Oh, sure. Thank you. So that's a certificate of need submission. So we do have to seek approval from the state commission to explain the purpose of our project, explain more of the details. It's really a regulatory process so that there's understanding and approval from the District of Columbia to move forward. And next slide.
That's actually the end of our show.
That's
a little brief.
I'm just going to jump in with some questions. It seems to me that you are not expanding the footprint of your facility at all. You're just converting space into this behavioral health section, which I think is, personally, I think this is fabulous. Just to know, what is the regulatory body you need to get your certificate of need from?
Sure, Raina, do you want to take that one?
Yeah. So SHPTA is the State Health Planning Development Agency. Can you guys see me? My camera just went out, but
nope, we can totally see
it. Came back on. Thank you. So you may hear it referred to as SHPTA. It sits within the Department of Health. So, but this
Okay.
this office, SHPTA, is responsible for issuing the CONs, certificate of needs for all of those health services.
And do they specifically ask you to go to the ANC to get a letter of agreement or approval?
Yes, that is required. Before we are able to move forward with that service, we need to make sure that we've informed our local ANC of what service we intend to provide, and get their approval.
I'm going to go ahead and call on some other commissioners. Commissioner Roosevelt, you're up.
Yeah. Is my mic on?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. Simply, we really appreciate the presentation. It was really informative. I think this is a great idea. So you would need the letter of support before you start applying before SHPTA for this change. Is that right?
Yes, when we apply, well, when we submit our application for the CON, which we have not done yet, that's when we would need to have the letter included in our package. So right now
And
we
so
thought it
when
was
would that
important to get in front of, and pulling up my timeline again, I'm sorry, it fell down so quickly. That should be by the end of this year. We're hoping to submit our application and Caroline, keep me honest if I'm misstating.
Yes.
Commissioner Simkowitz?
First of all, I think this is a great idea. You know, after being in the hospital emergency room with a kid that has, you know, a twisted ankle or some soccer injury, I think it's important to keep people like that separate than people that are, you know, having psychiatric emergencies. The question I have is this in any other hospital in the DC area, or are you guys going to be the first?
So I can't speak to every hospital in the DC area, but having a separate emergency space for psychiatric patients is not unusual. I can speak within the Johns Hopkins Health System. We are the only hospital currently that does not have this particular space built out. So I would say that it's a best practice. And as emergency spaces are being built now, it's typical to include a separate space built intentionally for those with a psychiatric emergency.
Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Commissioner Elkins?
Well, this does sound like a very good idea. I wonder, I mean, when you come to the ANC, you're asking us to speak on behalf of the community to give our not approval or a review of it or whatever. It's not that we have a decision-making process here, but I wonder whether you have plans to reach out to the neighboring, to the neighbors to the hospital to inform them so that they could inform us if they see any problem. I don't anticipate that, but hearing about this for the first time, we don't really have a basis to form an opinion except our personal opinion, because we have not heard from the community. So is there a way in which you could inform the community, and perhaps with our participation in some way, and so that we could be well informed in our judgment?
So I will say before we even start the CON process, we had to submit a letter of intent to SHPTA. That letter of intent was published in the Washington Post. And that way, the purpose of that is to make sure that the community does have a general awareness. We're more than happy to speak to any other groups that we can reach to make sure that they are aware. But it is incredibly important to DC government and to us to make sure that our neighbors are aware of what we're doing. So if there are any pockets that you think we should be connected to, I'm more than happy to discuss this with them.
Well, if I might just respond, I think I'm glad it was published in the Washington Post, but I have a feeling that most neighbors probably didn't read it. Yeah, and that's okay. But I'm wondering whether something more affirmative could be done for the nearby neighbors. Not our entire ANC, of course, but I'm thinking about the people who live within a few blocks of the hospital. I think they feel a particular relationship to the hospital, and I think we should respect that. I wonder whether there's some way to reach out to those neighbors. Is that something you might consider?
Yeah, we can look at some
absolutely.
strategies. Sure.
That's all.
Commissioner Davis?
Yeah, I was just wondering if there are any, with this change, is there any concerns, kind of along what Commissioner Elkin said, any concerns that our neighbors might have, like having a dedicated psychiatric ward from the does that mean that you're going to draw more emergency psychiatric patients? Do you expect that to change? I assume right now they're just kind of mixed in with the general population, but having a dedicated wing, does that mean you're going to be receiving more emergency psychiatric cases?
Sure, I can answer that. Thanks for asking that important question. So we really are building the space to take care of the patients that already are presenting at Sibley on a regular basis. And I think every hospital in DC is seeing an increase in the amount of mental health that we're all taking care of. So we're not building this to draw, special population, because to be honest with you, the population is already presenting at Sibley. And at every hospital in DC. So our intent really is to create a safer environment for all of the patients. As Raina said, both those with psychiatric emergency and those who do not have psychiatric emergency, to create kind of that safe space as a little bit separate. But certainly, we already have those patients coming through our doors every day, and this will better prepare us to take care of them.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So I would just like to add, Ms. Jordan, maybe you and I can connect, because this is Commissioner Roosevelt and I's constituents live all around the hospital, and also Commissioner Davis. We've got some ideas that we could pass on to you to reach out to neighbors who are close by, and just to talk about timing. We're not going to be able to bring this up for a resolution tonight, but our next meeting is Wednesday, November 6th. And we can tentatively put it on the calendar then, but that sounds like it's going to fit right in with your before the end of the year timeline.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I'll reach out to you, Ms. Jordan, tomorrow about our community listserv and maybe some things that we can put on there, the slides and some other ways we can reach people.
Perfect.
All right, thank you so much. Moving on, up next is a short presentation about the field school, and I believe that Miss Sherry Rutherford is here.
I am here. And
hello.
Hello, good to see everyone. I promise we will be very brief, but I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Again, my name is Sherry Rutherford, and I'm here on behalf of the field school, which is located at 2301 Foxhall Road in Commissioner Simkowitz's SMD. It's essentially just north and across Foxhall Road from the GW's Mount Vernon campus, if you're familiar with that. So it's bounded by Foxhall on the west, the Krieger to the north, 44th Street and the Park to the east, and then W Street to the south. The field school opened its doors at that Foxhall Road campus in 2002, and since that time, its 6 to 12 grade program has really thrived and flourished in that location. And at the same time, the school's been able to establish and maintain really effective relationships and productive relationships with its neighbors. Part of that's owing to the school size. It's a relatively small school, fewer than 400 students. And on 10 acres of campus, it really allows you to make use of your the physical environment and the physical spaces and the outdoor spaces, but also take advantage of those natural green buffers to really shield yourselves and protect themselves from the neighbors and those impacts. But part of it's also owing to the field school's deliberative approach to really be proactive and engaging with neighbors and responsive when issues do arise. So to that end, and so I'm here tonight, over the past few months, Field has been taking a look and entering into a master planning process to really look at its physical plan and physical and outdoor resources as well, and see how it can look towards its next 25 years, 50 years in this location. And as part of that effort, Field is contemplating a modest addition to its building, as well as reconfiguring some outdoor spaces. And that would include adding a running track around its existing soccer field, which is really, you can't see it from Foxhall, but it sits down below the actual, the buildings along Foxhall. So as part of that, we've reached out to all of our adjacent neighbors and, reaching out one-on-one with them. And then we've also scheduled 2 upcoming community meetings. And that's really why I wanted a moment here tonight let you all know about that. One will be a virtual meeting on Tuesday, October 15th, so that's online. And then the following week on the 23rd, we'll have a meeting on campus to invite folks to actually come to the school so we can walk around and show you what's in store and what we're anticipating for the sort of next generation of field school students. If you're interested in attending either of those meetings, I'm going to put my email in the chat. Please feel free to reach out to me. I'll be happy to get you connected with the information about those meetings. Or if you have any other questions about field, about these plans, I encourage you to just get in touch with me. I'll be happy to connect you with the right people at field. As I said, we're in a really preliminary stage of planning at this point. This will require BZA approval ultimately when this moves forward. So we will certainly be back with a full presentation to the full ANC, and look forward to after we've had this initial engagement with our neighbors, be able to share with you the thoughts, concerns, and the changes that we've made to our plan to address those, and then look for your support at that point. But right now, again, this is very preliminary. We're just sort of trying to make sure you're aware of it, and if there's any questions, so you know who to talk to.
When you put this in the chat, could you put those dates down again? I saw Tuesday, October 15th for online, and when was the on-site one? Thursday?
Wednesday the 23rd.
Wednesday the 23rd.
Yeah, I'll put that in right now.
Put those in there also.
Sure.
And just so the ANC knows for the future, first of all, we appreciate you coming early and letting us know your plans. It sounds like you're very early in this process. I'm guessing, does Field School operate under a campus plan?
They don't have a campus plan, but they have as an independent school, they have a special exception approval for an independent school. So it's similar, but it's a school plan as opposed to a university campus plan.
Okay. All right. Commissioner Simkowitz?
Thanks a lot for coming here, Ms. Rutherford, and thanks for calling the other day. As we discussed, I hope that you discuss with the field school people and the neighbors the possibility of adding the ability for neighborhood groups such as Stoddard Soccer, which is now called something else, which I forgot the name of it, to let kids play on those fields. It would allow them to play in their neighborhood, and it would also allow the field school to make a little bit of money from renting the fields. We've had this come up at many times with regard to St. Patrick's, and I believe our ANC years ago said they could not do that, which I think is a bad decision, because this field is open, it's empty half the time, more than half the time. So while I don't want to impact the neighborhood, if there's no neighborhood impact, I think that allowing kids to play on the soccer field that are not affiliated with the field school would be a good idea.
And we absolutely do have relationships with different organizations right now, but we absolutely are looking to expand upon those. And I think, Field really prides itself on sharing these resources with neighborhood, with organized groups, as well as neighbors in general who like to stroll around the campus. It is a beautiful campus with magnificent views, but absolutely hear you. And I think, one of the things about making these improvements to these outdoor facilities will really allow us to do more of that work in the future. So very point well taken and shared with the field school team. So thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Elkins?
I've already mentioned most of what I want to say to Ms. Rutherford, but I want to say to my colleagues as well, because I think this is an important project, which I hope will go very smoothly. First of all, I commend the school for already beginning contact with the neighbors. Most of those neighbors, I believe, really live what I would say is below the school. This is a very noisy, hilly campus. It's a beautiful campus, but it is very hilly. And so the people who are most directly next to the school, I think, are right below on 44th Street. And those relationships have been quite good as far as I know, with one exception, which the school dealt with, I think, very effectively in the past, and I was involved in that. I just want to mention that because it is hilly, there's an awful lot of water that's collected from the rain on that campus, and it all goes down the hill, except to the extent that it's caught by the school and dealt with through a fairly elaborate system that's already there. So it's not like the school didn't plan for this. In one particular case, it didn't seem to be working, and they had to take additional steps. And all I'm saying is, as further development goes, it's important to try to make sure that this is foremost in the plans of the school. The best time to deal with the water runoff is while you're building and not afterwards. Secondly, of course, there is the problem potentially of noise from additional activity, and I trust that the school will take that into consideration with regard to the neighbors. So I commend the school for reaching out individually to the neighbors, and I trust Commissioner Simkowitz will have his ears open to hear any particular concern and can work with the school to deal with this and deal with it ahead of time so that the project can go smoothly. So thank you.
You will hear from me often throughout this process to make sure we're all on the same page. And Commissioner Elkins, just to that point, the first time I stepped foot on that site, the first thing I thought about was stormwater management, because it's just the topography is so dramatic. And I was somewhat surprised, but pleased to hear that while they've had problems in the past, they really do seem to have been effectively mitigated and addressed. So, but certainly as we do more interventions in this next round of taking a look at the campus, that's foremost in the team's mind, is that to make sure that what was a problem has been fixed and does not become a problem again. So it's critical.
Thank you so much for coming. I'm sure we'll see you, and hopefully some of us will be able to attend one or both of these.
Yes, again, for those meetings or any other questions, just please reach out.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much. I appreciate the time.
Okay, our last institution is Georgetown University. They are on the agenda under official actions, but this is something new. And Corey Peterson is here to talk about Shaw Field.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Chair Duncan. I am going to share my screen really quick, and I will be brief. I will on the agenda later in for our campus plan amendments related to how we count our traditional undergraduate students and the addition of the car barn. But to this, for right now, about 60 seconds, quickly, just we released our NOI on September 20th related to adding lights to Shaw Field. So for those of you that are not familiar with Shaw Field is here on the right, highlighted in yellow. It is in the northwest quadrant or northwest part of our campus. It's a natural grass field. It is only used for our men's and women's soccer teams. It's not used for any other programs. And that soccer season is August to mid-November, and adding lights will add that flexibility in scheduling games and practices. Initially, we had talked about adding light poles that were at 100 feet. We lowered that to 80 feet. We have completed a lighting impact study. We've completed a sound impact study. We have connected with the FAA and have received an issue of determination of no hazard, which means no flashing red lights on these. We are connecting with our traffic consultant, Wells and Associates, and we will continue to have parking provided in the southwest garage, and the games will still be subject to the same start time restrictions included in the campus plan related to Cooper Field, which is where our soccer team plays here in the center of campus, which is Monday through Friday. No games will begin between 4 and 7 p.m. We're on a tight timeline because we're hoping to get this approved and the lights installed for next use next fall. So as you can see here, the release was on September 20th. We have presented initially to 2E. We're here at 3D. We've been in connection with Foxhall, Burleith, Hillendale, National Park Service, you name it. We've been talking with a lot of folks recently. We anticipate filing this in early November, and I will be back for a much larger presentation next month, and then hopefully a resolution in either December or January, depending on the Zoning Commission hearing. That is brief as I can be, and I see JP, you've got your hand raised. Happy to answer any questions.
I, of course, cannot speak as a commissioner. I have to recuse myself because of a conflict with Georgetown, but my house is directly on the park across from the field. And as I told you many times, I don't think this is going to be a problem for anyone. I urge you to speak with the neighbors along my street to see if it would be a problem for them. But we already have lights on top of Yates. I've never once in the 20-something years I've lived in this neighborhood complain about this lights, so I don't think this is going to be a problem. So good luck, but please talk to my neighbors.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you for coming. And just so I'm sort of keeping notes on our calendar, so you will be looking. We won't necessarily have to do a resolution on this till December.
Right. Yeah, I'll come back next month. That way I can show you more about our light impact study, our sound impact study, and more details with some photos and get into some granular details for you. But since the NOI is out there, if folks have questions, I'll drop my contact information. I'll also be here till the end of the meeting as we've got another campus plan amendment on deck that we'll talk about a little later.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, we are moving on to community concerns and commissioner updates. And I'm going to have us go through commissioner updates. And if there's anybody on the call who's not here for something that's already on the agenda, you're welcome to raise your hand. So I'm going to go ahead and call on the commissioners for commissioner updates while we all get re-spotlighted. And I'm going to start with Commissioner Elkins. Do you have any updates for us?
I do, Madam Chairman. The Transportation Committee will meet on Monday, October 21st. It's 2 p.m. and we will be posting the link on the website. And we invite people to attend. Thank you.
I do not have any commissioner updates at this time. I do want to say Commissioner Horn and I talked with the zoning administrator, but I'm going to let him give that update. Commissioner Cologne Roosevelt.
I don't have any updates at this time.
All right, 04, Commissioner Davis.
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones. About 3 weeks ago, I got a notice from some constituents who live at the intersection of Norton and Potomac, right next to the Washington Aqueduct, the De La Carlia water treatment plant, of an unbearable stench emanating from the treatment plant. And I went and investigated, and sure enough, it was unbearable. I mean, you could barely breathe. It resembled hydrogen sulfide, kind of a strong egg smell. So anyway, some people were moving into hotels and were complaining about lack of response from the aqueduct. I finally got through to some people at the Department of Environment, DOEE. They were very responsive eventually here. Talked to some other agencies and actually got a response from the aqueduct. It turns out there was a algae bloom in the Potomac River because we were kind of in the midst of tail end of a drought then. And they had emptied the tank, as they do every year, for maintenance, and the tank was covered in this horrible algae. Anyway, it went on for close to a week. These poor neighbors of ours were really struggling through it. And so work with DOEE to investigate and try and at least get some kind of information to my constituents in the future so they know that there's going to be an end to this, that, that if we do encounter this smell again, that it's going to be short-lived and it's not toxic. So there's that. And then another just quick thing, I want to just ask other commissioners to pay attention to the yard signs in the median of MacArthur Boulevard. There are going to be a lot of them in coming up, the election coming, and we just want to be consistent with which ones we allow and which ones we disallow. You may remember when Lord of the Drinks and some other for-profit businesses wanted to advertise, we disallowed that. But it seems like for nonprofits and campaigns and other things, we seem to have a little more leeway. So let's just try to keep an eye on it and make sure our beautiful neighborhood isn't completely overrun for weeks on end with yard signs. That's it for me.
Thank you. I would also just like to say, great job on that smell. It was so bad. It was
awful. Bad. Yeah, it really was unbearable. Those poor people. I really kind of felt for them because they couldn't stay in their homes. So glad it's over.
Commissioner Horn?
Well, many months ago, Commissioner Duncan and I sent a letter to the zoning administrator concerning what's called ZA10, which is the zoning administrator's interpretation concerning additions and renovations that caused us so much trouble in the cathedral construction. And we got an email asking if we'd like to have a Zoom call about this topic. And, many months later, but very much appreciated. And we had a really nice conversation with the zoning administrator and her top assistant about how to make this rule better for the community. And they made no decisions, but they made it clear that they intend to go through a process to fix this thing, which would be just great. We presented 7 different alternatives, ways to fix it, and they are going to think about them.
It was great. And I guess I'm gonna go back because it goes to this addition versus renovation. We did have the BZA hearing for the 5122 Cathedral, which has gone on now for a year and 8 months. And it has been pushed out again because the Department of Buildings still hasn't issued the permit. But the design of the new house is exactly what we have been asking for. This is a huge win for us and for the neighbors. The only thing I heard that's holding it up is DOEE is really being strict with them on the stormwater runoff. So it has not been issued yet, but so I'm not going to claim complete victory, but we are on our way to victory. Commissioner Nowak, do you have any updates?
I do. It is just a reminder. This is obviously an election year. We heard from our local ANC candidates earlier. We will not meet again before Election Day, so I wanted to remind neighbors that early voting opens in the district on October 28th and runs through November 3rd. There are locations in every ward of the city. Unfortunately, the Ward 3 locations are not what one might describe as being convenient to the Palisades, as they are the Chevy Chase Community Center, the Cleveland Park Library, and UDC. So none of them are terribly close. However, Ward 2, the Georgetown Neighborhood Library is an early voting center. So if you are inclined to vote in person and early, that is the closest location for you. And mail-in ballots have been mailed. They arrived at my house yesterday, so perhaps folks on the call have received them as well. So please do exercise your right and responsibility and vote. Thank you.
Excellent. Commissioner Simkowitz, do you have any updates?
I don't have anything today. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I do see no hands raised. Oh, Commissioner Elkins.
Thank you, Chairman. I just want to say one more thing about the Cathedral Avenue. Congratulations to both you and Commissioner Horn for the work you've done on this. But I think that we should not let the Department of Buildings off the hook. They cost the neighbor many thousands of dollars. They cost the ANC at least $5,000 or $5,000. I don't know the exact amount to contest this. They could have fixed this problem in March of 2023, and they did not. And this is an issue, along with others, that I am taking forward to the Department of Buildings in terms of how not to fix this particular problem, but how they deal with these kind of issues which are brought to them by citizens and by residents and by ANCs, that they really need to be more responsive and not be so defensive about protecting their staff at any cost. And I think that we can celebrate a victory at the same time saying it's not fixed yet, and that the department needs to have a reform. They've got a new director, and I'm hoping that he will rise to the occasion.
Agreed. I forget how horrible this has been. Okay, we are moving on to our official actions, and the first item up is the bell ringer bike race. And I know that there's 2 people on here. We are gonna give them 1 minute to tell us about this race. And I don't know if you have a map to show us the route, but we do have a letter of support. Go ahead. It's Mr. Timko and Miss Bridget Holmes.
Yes, and if we could just
Yep.
have time to share our screens, Bridget can dive into the details.
Great. While we're waiting to share, I'll go ahead and get started because I know it's been
long meeting for you all. If you aren't familiar, Bell Ringer is Georgetown's bike ride to end cancer. All funds that are raised as part of Bell Ringer support groundbreaking cancer research at Georgetown University's Lombardi Comprehensive Cancer Center. And as you probably know, Georgetown Lombardi is DC's only NCI designated comprehensive cancer center. So we're super lucky to have that in our backyard. There's literally groundbreaking research happening there every single day that's benefiting our community right here in the district and beyond. So far, Bell Ringer has raised more than $3.8 million in our first 3 years. And we're really grateful for the support that you've given us so far. Our ride this year is happening on October 26th. We are gearing up and very excited. As you can see from the road closure map on the screen, your ANC will be impacted as it travels up, our ride travels up Canal Road. We'll be closing the cross streets that run down towards Canal Road briefly in the morning. This is what we've done over the past couple of years. So this is consistent with previous rides. And we do expect that all riders will be clear of the district and into Maryland by 8:30 in the morning. So overall, road closure is from about 7 to 8:30. This is a one-way ride out into Maryland, so we don't have the riders returning back into the district. That was super quick, hopefully within a minute. I'm happy to take any questions, but super grateful for all of your support.
So I'm going to start before we go into our discussion with a motion on the floor to approve the route of this race. Is there a second? Commissioner Simkowitz seconds the motion. Discussion. Commissioner Simkowitz.
What's the total mileage of the ride?
So riders have a choice of riding 25, 50, or 100 miles, and they all have the same finish line out in Montgomery County.
Okay, and how do they get back to Georgetown if they start here?
We have shuttles that provide riders and bikes way back to Georgetown from the finish line.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Are there any other questions? All right, no questions. Thank you for this. Ma'am, any chance you can email these slides to me?
Absolutely. Happy to do that.
All right, thank you. All right, the motion on the
Thank
floor.
you so much.
Yeah,
I have the
welcome.
slide.
Oh, you have the slide. Okay, we're all set then. Thank you so much for coming. All those in favor of sending a letter of approval for the ride? Any passes unanimously. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Arizona and MacArthur traffic intersection letter. This is mine. The motion on the floor is to approve the letter that was circulated, but I am going to be offering amendments. Is there a second? Commissioner Davis seconds the motion. This is a letter that addresses some of the issues that we're having at the intersection of Arizona and MacArthur, with traffic backing up, heading downtown on MacArthur in a severe way that's impacting the cut-through traffic that is causing some people at certain times of day on some days not to be able to leave their homes by car. So the letter, I met with neighbors, Commissioner Davis and I, and members of the Transportation Committee, met with some of the neighbors, and we came up with some possible solutions. So I am going to ask, can we pull up the Exhibit B and share that? Okay. So hopefully people can get an idea of where we are. You can see Canal Road at the bottom as Arizona winds up. One of the problems that we are seeing with the new lane changes for the bike lane, if cars come up Arizona and they try to turn left on Carolina or Dorset or Sherrier, it makes cars back up all the way onto Canal because there's no longer 2 lanes there because of the bike lane. We think that no left turn signs for drivers heading up the hill, not to turn onto Carolina, Dorset, or Sherrier, will help with that backup in the morning and clear some of that out. On the other side, at the top of this is Galena. There are already no through signs for the afternoon there. They are older signs that I am almost positive DDOT has told me that they don't put up anymore. There are no through signs. So we would either like them to replace these signs with no through signs, or put do not enter signs for the afternoon rush hour times. And then if we could pull up Exhibit A, or did you have a question about this slide, Commissioner Nowak?
I do, just about the proposal of no left turn coming uphill. Would that be a rush hour only, or all 24/7, no left turns onto those streets?
So we're thinking it would be in the morning, because that's where we see it all back up to on Canal. So it would just be in the morning.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So this next exhibit from the letter. So this is the intersection right now. Arizona is going horizontal and MacArthur is going vertically. And where I've drawn these red arrows here, this is heading downtown. So this would be heading what we call south, heading downtown. Right now, this left lane is left turn only. There is hardly ever any backup in this lane. The right lane right now is right turn only and straight, and it consistently, daily, and obnoxiously is backing up all the way to Claudio's table and sometimes beyond. And we feel like there are just not enough cars getting through the intersection during the light cycle. So we are suggesting in this letter for DDOT to examine making that left lane straight and left and making the right lane right turn only. And we would also like them to evaluate the turn radius here, where I have larger trucks sometimes get stuck here and have to reverse. Some of the bigger trucks that come through here, I've seen them have to stop and back up, and we just want them to evaluate the turn radius. And one of the advantages of making that right turn only is when they restripe the lines on the other side of the road, there would be a buffer here for bikes headed down MacArthur.
And if I could just add real quick, Tricia, one of the implications of all the traffic backing up as far as Claudio's table is the cars will have to sit for 3 or 4 light cycles to get through if they're going inbound. But more
Actually,
importantly,
I've had to wait on multiple occasions for 6 light cycles, but go on.
But more importantly, they'll cut through 3D04. They'll turn into the neighborhood, take a right to get around the traffic. And this is the cut through that we're trying to address. And this is what is exacerbating the cut through problem, is that backup, because people don't want to stop. I've stopped and talked to motorists who are stuck in my neighborhood. I live on Macomb, just not far from where this all happens. And I've asked people who got backed up, and I've had more than one person tell me that Waze is sending them through there. So I know this is part of your letter. You're going to get to that later, but I just wanted to say, just to add to that backup is what's forcing so much traffic through.
And I will say that the Waze is also weaving people through the neighborhood even when there is no traffic. So we have also asked DDOT to contact, which they have a way of contacting Google and Waze and all of these things to make sure they know of these timestamps. I will say this, the neighbors there in this area recognize that once a month, this whole place is completely gridlock, because as soon as there is any kind of incident or fender bender down on Canal Road, everybody suffers. Arizona is backed up. There's backup on my street where like Macomb is. There's backup on Cathedral. There's backup all over those people trying to get over to Arizona, on Dorset, Carolina, and Sherrier. We know that none of these changes are going to fix those once a month things that happen when Canal is basically down to one lane. So it is hard to know the traffic increase that has come all over this area. Is it because we're back to pre-pandemic traffic levels most days? Is it because the GW Parkway is still under construction and there are a ton of people coming through our neighborhood to get to the Beltway instead of taking the GW, which we hope will give us some relief? But our letter is essentially asking DDOT to make these changes. I see some neighbors with their hands up, but I'm going to go through the commissioners first. Commissioner Nowak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really like the suggestions that you have outlined here. I have one question that I did not see in the letter, and that refers to the length of the light timing themselves. I have been coming what I guess is westbound on Arizona, and one would expect that I might get stuck once I get through the intersection, or the block the box type of issue that I was talking about with Officer McElwee earlier. But I didn't have the opportunity to do that because the light changed so quickly that only, 2 cars got through the intersection before the light changed. So
Are you talking about the left-hand turn lane?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so if you're coming down Arizona and
down Arizona and making a
left
onto MacArthur.
We can ask them to look at that, but they have examined that multiple times, and it's actually a little bit longer than it used to be.
Oh.
It only has room for about 2 cars of storage. It's very small.
It is really awful. So, okay, thank you. If you,
I do
if
it
we
all the
could just
time.
add to the
They
list.
know. The other thing that they could do, it doesn't really help your situation there, but in that right-hand turn lane, they could put a green arrow when there's a left-hand and left-hand on Arizona going west, but that's only going to let maybe one car in. What tends to happen is if we send these letters, and I know that Christian Pinheiro, our GDOT representative, is sitting here listening to this, so I may call on him if he has any particular insight. But they'll take our suggestions and then they'll come. They'll send the engineers out to look at it.
Yeah, of course. I think it is a traffic study would prove out what we all anecdotally know, that 2 cars get through and then they're backing up the hill in Arizona. So thank you.
I am going to call on the neighbor. It's Lois's iPad. I'm assuming this is Lois. Hello.
Yes, it's my iPad. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you perfectly.
Okay. I've listened to a couple of these meetings specifically because of that intersection. Like others, I have lived in this neighborhood for over 30 years, and I know that things change. But, and actually the officer made a comment at the very end of his presentation today, but traffic was better before they made all these changes. So we never had these backups. I live on Dana Place, and there are times when it can take me, you talk about the backups going towards downtown, I'm going to talk about the backups going the other direction, because it can take me 10 minutes sometimes to go from Dana Place to get to Arizona to make a left-hand turn to go down the canal. And I have never, in the entire 30 plus years I've lived here, seen a backup all the way to Dana Place on MacArthur Boulevard. And I don't know who created these plans or who designed the timing or who thought of anything, but it's very frustrating. And it's not just during rush hour. It happened to me Saturday afternoon at 1 o'clock. I sat you talked about sitting through 6 lights. It's the same thing to coming down MacArthur to get on to Arizona. And it's crazy. It's
If
just
I can add to
crazy.
that too, I know that because on Canal Road, since they've inserted the light into where there used to be a stop sign at the boathouse, like Abner's Cloud House. I know I personally, and this is anecdotal, but I try to avoid Canal Road all the time because of the backup down there. And a lot of that forces people up onto MacArthur. So I think MacArthur has a higher volume than it has in the past. So
Well, but that
my point is,
light's
I
been
don't think
there
it's
a
just
while.
because of this intersection. It's also because of people bailing out from MacArthur.
But that light has been there a while now.
Yeah,
hasn't it?
The traffic's been bad since then as well. I've noticed, and it's
Well,
just been.
I have never experienced the backups that I am experiencing now until they changed the intersection at MacArthur in Arizona. I've never in my life seen cars backed up all the way to Dana Place. As long as I've lived here.
I'm not here to like defend DDOT, but they probably have, I know that we've got Arizona Avenue numbers from the Canal Road study that they did years ago, and I'm going to dig into the data to see if they had it heading, which I call north on MacArthur through the intersection. But we actually have one extra lane there to sort cars. I do know I've lived here since 2001. And we've all been spoiled for the last 5 years because there's hardly been any traffic at all. And now once again, Arizona is backed up all the way to Loughborough. There's just a lot of cars. We also do not know how many people are traversing through here to avoid the GW Parkway. These are all unknowns, but we are trying to optimize this intersection as best we can to move the cars through. I have been driving through this intersection, and when my kids were at Key, I remember at 3:15 in the afternoon, Arizona would be backed up to Loughborough. I get everyone's frustration. The bike lane is not going away. So we're just trying to make it the best we can. But I hear you, Lois. I hear you.
Yeah, I mean, as I'm saying, I mean, I've never seen a backup like that before. I mean, you talk about going to Key. I live on Dana Place. The parents picking up their kids won't even let me out of my driveway. So, I have to time doctor's appointments in the morning so that I have to make sure I don't have to leave my driveway when parents are taking their kids to school. So that's a whole nother subject. But
I recognize your pain, and I appreciate you for putting up with that. Thank you. Seriously.
But going down MacArthur to try to turn left on Arizona, you were just talking a minute ago about only 2 cars can get through on Arizona to turn left on MacArthur. It's the same thing from MacArthur to turn left onto Arizona. Only 2 cars can get through.
Perhaps we have them look at the left turn timing. I would accept that as a friendly amendment in the letter to have them examine that.
All you have going that direction on MacArthur is you have the left lane that anybody who wants to turn left has to be in. And they also, and so people sit in that lane, and then you have the center lane, and which goes straight through. The right lane for about 3/4 of it between Dana and Arizona, there's parking on about 3/4 of it. So those people can't get over and use the right-hand lane to go straight until you get up past, the little shopping center by the bank, by where the bank was. So that's why it gets all clogged up. Yeah. Because the left lane is now left turn only. So it just was not well designed. I'm sorry. I don't know who designed it.
Our representative from DDOT has raised his hand. Mr. Pinheiro, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll turn my camera on. Yes, I've been listening for several hours for this, and so I would just want to gather information, but just want to let you know that I'm here. I do acknowledge the concerns that I'm hearing. I did let the team know to come and look back at this and give them a heads up that you are in the process of drafting a letter that'll be sent to our office. So you will expect a response from us after we look through all your feedback. So just wanted to say thanks and acknowledge myself that I'm here, and let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Before we take a vote, does any commissioners have any other questions? What does everyone, any opinions on asking DDOT to examine the timing of the left turns? I think that's a great idea. We'll add a bullet point to the letter to examine the left turns, particularly headed west on MacArthur.
West on Arizona.
Sorry, I'm
Left
sorry,
on
north,
MacArthur?
heading north on MacArthur, towards Glen Echo. Heading north. Okay, all those in favor of sending the letter as amended? Any opposition? No, passes unanimously. Thank you, and thank you, Lois, for your comments. All right, moving through very quickly, we've got 5025 Upton Street public space application. Commissioner Roosevelt, did you want to make a motion?
Yeah, so I mean, it's basically just an existing driveway being remade. The motion on the floor is to approve the letter of support for the public space application. The developer, David Lansman, is here. He stuck around through this entire meeting, so I think we should let him speak. So if you have anything to say and just anything about the larger project, we would love to hear it.
I second the motion.
And no speech necessary. Frustrated with Arizona traffic as well.
Do any commissioners have any questions about this public space application? All those in favor of approval? Passes unanimously. And Mr. Landsman, if you could stay on. Next
Yes,
one
ma'am.
up is 5070 Millwood Lane, PSA 453498. This is in my SMD. Once again, this is pretty straightforward. The house is repouring the driveway, basically moving it a foot or expanding it. It's just sort of 1 foot over. I saw no problems with it, and motion on the floor is to approve that letter. Do I have a second? Commissioner Nowak seconds the motion. Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of sending the Millwood letter? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Landsman, for sticking around.
Thank
Next
you, guys.
up is the Claudio's Table Settlement Agreement. Commissioner Davis, would you like to make a motion?
Yes. I would like to give me the language here.
Just say make a motion to approve.
Make a motion that we discuss the expansion of the Claudia's Table restaurant at the intersection of MacArthur and Cathedral.
And to approve their settlement agreement.
And to approve their settlement agreement. Thank you.
I'll second that motion. Is there any discussion?
Was Matt Menorca? Are you still here, Menorah? Sorry.
Oh,
There he
yeah,
is.
I'm still here, but you guys are doing a great job. I didn't want to interrupt anything.
Maybe can you take just a quick moment and just speak to what's happening? You were on our previous meeting, if the commissioners might remember.
We came in July
we
to
did have
talk about this.
would you like us to share the drawing that we have? We have that available if you'd like.
Oh yeah, you can share it or I can share it. It's entirely up to you.
Sure. I think is the floor plan readily available?
Oh, Catherine, I think you've got the wrong screen.
If it's not, I can try on my end to share it. I'm not.
That's fine too. Yeah, that'd be easier. That might be easier for you anyway.
All right. Oh,
there we go.
Okay, great. Yeah, so we came back in July to discuss the expansion of Claudio's Table into the neighboring establishment, which is now the dry cleaning spot. we have to, before we can even apply to ABC board for the permission for the expansion, we first have to have the approval from you all to amend the settlement agreement to allow for the additional capacity. And that additional capacity is gonna be an additional 40 seats. So that'll bring it from the initial 80 seats and 90 occupancy load at seating and standing to, excuse me, to 80 seats and 90 occupancy load once the expansion is completed.
Can you give us a quick description of what we're looking at on the map? I think that's MacArthur Boulevard.
Sure. So the bottom rectangle is the original premises that are right there, and then up to the sort of the top above. You can see sort of halfway through it. You can see steps that go to what's going to be the hallway into an expanded kitchen area, private dining, and additional seating.
So that's MacArthur Boulevard that runs vertically to the left. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes, and then that's Cathedral Avenue that runs horizontally where it says Claudio's Table existing expansion floor.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, and that's the former dry cleaner, right? On that.
That's correct. Yes.
That you guys that Claudio's Table has purchased and is looking to expand it to.
Yes,
Got it.
exactly.
Thank you.
Yeah,
And
and
the
we're very
tables
much in the
on the
preliminary stages.
upper
The
left.
building permit drawings were just submitted this week, so we're hoping that eventually the expansion will be finished and ready to go for next summer. But again, we can't even begin the ABC process without the support of the ANC to amend the settlement agreement to allow for the additional capacity. So that's why we're here.
Commissioner Nowak, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just asking the tables in sort of the upper left. Those are the outdoor seating that's in the old dry cleaners parking lot. Is that correct?
No, I believe that's still going to be the interior. So it's an additional 40 seats. The 1/3 of it is simply just an expanded kitchen, and then there's sort of that private dining area, and that's also the an interior area as well. The streetery is there, but it's not on this list, or on this rendering.
That is Choose Cleaner right there, Marilyn.
In that that uppermost left portion is the dry cleaners, the current dry cleaners building. Are you proposing changes to the facade, or are these internal renovations only?
I believe it's predominantly internal renovations. I think there might be some sort of cosmetics just to paint and a different signage, but from what I understand, it's predominantly just the internal changes.
Commissioner Simkowitz, did you have your hand up earlier? I'm sorry.
They answered my questions.
Okay, good.
Okay, we can probably take that down. Thank you very much. I want to let everyone know that I have personally spoken to many of the neighbors who live right around there, and not a single one expressed any opposition to this at all. Are there any other comments? All right, so motion, Commissioner
Second
Elton,
question,
sorry.
yes.
Sorry,
I'm a little slow in raising my hand. While this
Okay.
has nothing to do with whether we approve this or not, I will vote in favor of this. I just wanted to say that it looked to me like the drawings allow some real separation between this new room and the rest of the restaurant. And as a person who is a strong advocate for quiet restaurants, I would hope that maybe there would be a way to keep the noise down. Claudio's at the present time is a very noisy restaurant. And this gives them an opportunity to maybe have a quieter room for those of us who have hearing loss and cannot hear our wife across the table or our other colleagues. And recently a survey was done of 1,000 people across the country about whether they would like to have quieter restaurants, and 70% said they would be very happy to have a quieter restaurant and would go out more often. So I just wanted to commend that to Claudio's, because they are very much a neighborhood institution, much loved, and this is a chance for them to find a new way to bring even more people in, because people will come if it's quieter. Thank you. That's an advertisement for quiet.
And I will certainly pass that recommendation on to Claudio. And it is myself personally, I also enjoy a quiet restaurant. My favorite DJ request is turn it down a little bit. So I'm completely on board with you.
Well, I will send you the results of the survey in case you would find that useful in talking to your colleagues.
No, I'd love to see that. That'd be great. Thank you.
Good.
I will say he recently put in some sounding proofing on the ceiling, and it's helped.
It's
But
improved,
I
I'm
will
sure. That's
concur.
good.
It has been mentioned many times. Okay, all those in favor of approval of the new settlement agreement, raise your hand. Passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks so much. I'll get a signed version over to you very shortly.
Okay, that sounds great.
Thanks. Appreciate the support.
Moving on to the last item on our official actions is the Georgetown University campus plan. Commissioner Nowak, would you like to make a motion?
Yes, can I move for approval of a letter, which I will ask Catherine to share in just a moment, which indicates the ANC's support of the Georgetown campus plan and their amendments that they can speak to tonight at the request of commissioners. So I'll stop there for a second and then we can discuss.
Do we have a motion on the floor that's been seconded?
That's what I was just requesting. As a
Okay,
second.
I second that.
Okay, awesome. So I will give a quick overview of the letter, and then Corey Peterson is with us again. Thanks for sticking around, Corey, to answer any questions. But as commissioners will remember, we have discussed this previously. There were a number of items that our colleague Commissioner Simkowitz raised of concerns that where we could ask Georgetown to be a little bit more mindful and speak to the compliance with their current campus plan before asking for any amendments. In the ensuing weeks since that discussion, Mr. Peterson has responded in writing to the commissioners, and I think in a satisfactory manner. So as such, and in keeping with, just backing up a bit as a reminder, the university has enrollment caps at what we think of as the Georgetown campus, but known as the Hilltop campus. They also have a campus downtown in which students there can take 1 or 2 classes in our neighborhood. And as soon as they do that per the existing campus plan, they are counted against the enrollment cap in our neighborhood. So this amended campus plan would allow students to enroll in, take their classes in, live in downtown, take 1 or 2 classes up on the western campus, and be within the spirit of their spirit and letter of the agreement, which says that they are actually students of the downtown campus and therefore should not count against the enrollment and housing caps for our neighborhood. So that's a review of the reason why they are applying for this campus plan amendment. The third paragraph of this letter just references that we have had these conversations with Mr. Peterson, talking about the RATS pedestrian safety on the campus, especially around the hospital, as well as the trolley trestle bridge, and that we were satisfied with their responses enough such that we would move forward in support of this plan. I'll stop there. Commissioner Simkowitz.
Yes, of course, I have a conflict of interest, so I can't participate as a commissioner. And also, I need to withdraw my vote and move to abstain for the same reason on the bell ringer. I thought it was MedStar that was doing it, but apparently it was Georgetown itself. I'd like to thank Corey Peterson for buying through the university new Big Belly trash cans. I don't know how many there are, but there's a lot of them on campus. That replaced all the broken trash cans that have been broken for years. So that's something that came out of our ANC's correspondence with Georgetown. Also, pedestrian safety. Georgetown built a new sidewalk to carry pedestrians from approximately Reservoir Road by the new hospital across what used to be a parking lot, and that protects students from getting hit by cars on the driveway. So thank you, Mr. Peterson, for that. And as a member of the public, which I'm speaking right now, I could support this letter. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Zinkers. I will also
can-
add,
can I
just as
add
a point
a
of
friendly,
reference.
a friendly,
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
there's one other part to their text amendment, the car barn that they had rented for years. They've purchased it.
They
were-
have, do we need to speak to it?
Well-
So speaking about the car barn, for those that are not as close to this, the car barn is a building, as Commissioner Duncan says, that has been rented by the university for years, used for academic purposes, and official events. The university has purchased it and would like to expand the boundaries of their campus to include the car barn. That particular component of the campus plan was of significant interest to some members of the Georgetown Community Partnership, on which I serve on behalf of the ANC. And the neighbors immediately nearby the car barn were concerned about noise and traffic related to that. And there were some limitations and restrictions placed on the hours of use. Specifically, I believe it's 8 p.m. On weekdays and no events on the weekends without express written consent from the partnership. And so that satisfied those neighbors as well. Mr. Peterson, Corey, have I missed anything in my rundown of the review of our discussions?
I actually was thinking maybe we should put you on payroll and you could help do some of these presentations. You've actually done really well. I think the one exception is I would note with the car barn, the concern was related to noise on our car barn patio and covered pavilion. It was not related to transportation. There's no transportation impacts there. And we did come to an agreement with the neighbors closest to there and have shared it with our steering committee that we added a conditional language as Commissioner Nowak presented, that any events would end by 8 p.m. with amplified music, and no events on weekends or holidays without express permission from the GCP.
Any other commissioners have any questions around this letter? Okay, then I'm going to suggest we move the question as amended. I'm happy to put in a sentence, capturing language around the car barn and its inclusion as part of the campus proper.
We could at that at the last sentence in the first paragraph where it says we therefore do not foresee any negative impacts to the neighborhood resulting from these changes. We could say and other aspects included in the campus plan, which would be the car barn.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. I'm going to speak to Catherine, our administrator. I've got that language written down so we can add that tomorrow when we do the letters. All right. Shall we call the question? All those in favor of approving this letter to the Zoning Commission for Georgetown's campus plan amendment? All those in favor? We have 6 commissioners, 1 abstention. Thank you. Amendment passes. Thank you, Mr. Peterson.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Corey.
All right. Before we move on to commission business, do any commissioners have any new business? Okay, we are on to commission business. Commissioner Elkins, I am going to hand this over to you to talk about your resolution for the digest proposal.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I am proposing that we prepare on a periodic basis a digest of resolutions which are being passed, have been passed by other ANCs across the district. When you think about ANCs, They are a unique institution. Here we are representing our neighborhood and dealing with issues that we see coming up out of our neighborhood, but there are 45 other commissions across the district. And we live in a pretty small city. And it's not remarkable that some of the problems that we have that we may not have identified because they haven't sort of raised their head are being addressed by other commissions across the city. And by hearing about what other commissions are dealing with in terms of delivery of services from the various departments that we deal with, we can be made aware of problems that once we look in our own neighborhood, or that as we think in terms of good public policy across the city, are things that we might want to lend our voice to. But we live in silos. How many of us on this commission really know what the other ANCs are doing? I think I know the answer to that. You don't have to answer. Now, there is a way to find out. You can take the time as an individual commissioner to go on the mayor's portal, where in theory, at least, all the resolutions of ANCs are listed, and you could download them on a monthly basis or periodic basis, and you could learn about this. But we have a hard time keeping up with our own work. And so I'm suggesting that with some help from the administrator, I would take the responsibility of downloading these resolutions, putting them in some order, and publishing for our purpose a list of what's going on in the other 45 commissions. And we did this on before most of you were on the commission, we did this on a pilot basis a few years back. And it was very interesting to find out that lo and behold, just as we are very active in a number of issues, so in fact are other commissions, and they have some of the same problems and some new ones. And it's important to find out about that to see where we can be helpful in bringing better delivery of services from our city government. So I think the maximum amount of money this would cost for administrative support, I'll do the editorial work. I'm not charging, of course, for my services. But I would I would benefit from some help from Catherine to do some of the administrative and formatting work to just make it easier to do this. And so I'm asking that we spend up to $1,000. I think it will probably be less than that over the next 12 months to produce this and see whether we find that it's useful. I think we did find it useful on those 3 pilot months that we did several years back. And I hypothesize that in fact, we will find it useful going forward for the next 12 months. So I'm proposing that we allocate up to $1,000 to compensate Catherine for her work to support this effort. And so excuse me, I should have moved this motion earlier, Madam Chairman. I hereby move a motion that we approve this expenditure.
I'll second that motion. Commissioner Simkowitz?
Thank you very much, Commissioner Elkins, for taking this. That's going to be a lot of work for you, and it's frustrating that this is not coming from the city. We've got an office that handles this in the city. Why aren't they doing that? Do you know?
Well, of course, we did the pilot a couple of years ago as a pilot for them to take it over. Their first response was this was not an appropriate use of their funds, that they were restricted by the statute. We did get a change in the statute so that in theory they could do it. But quite frankly, my sense is that OANC is so focused on other more administrative and non-programmatic matters that they really do not have an interest in doing this. And in any case, I think it would be valuable to us in 3D And therefore, I'm asking that we spend this money.
You know, I understand all that and I agree, and I'm going to vote along with you for this, but this is something that would benefit everybody all around the city, not just commissioners, but regular citizens. I think we should speak to Mr. White, Robert White, about this, getting that in a law that OANC has to take care of this. That this would be an official OANC function, which would come out of their budget, not ours, and they would have a dedicated staff member to do that, not you volunteering your time to do this, because this is going to take a lot of your time, which you're not charging for. And I think that's not appropriate in the sense that this should be done by somebody else. Why should you have to volunteer your time to do this?
I think certainly that can be a long-term goal here. Maybe part of it is to demonstrate the usefulness. Mr. Bays, Director Bays, has said to me, well, it's just easy. You just go on the mayor's portal and you can see what people are doing. I think that's not really an appreciation of what the rest of us have to do, particularly those of you who have a full-time job. I am retired, so I don't have to go and earn money to support my family. So I do have more time than the rest of you do. And so I'm willing to do the work, but I do agree with you down the road that this would be something useful. Another idea that I think has been proposed, I can't remember whether it's in the strategy for OANC or whether it's in the statute that, or the budget, that they would essentially give us a report about what's going on in the council. That's another blind spot we have, where council members are proposing laws that many of us, in some cases, would have an opinion about and might want to be supportive or actually give comments about whether they could be improved. But who has time to go read the district register every Friday? Hold up your hand, right? So, and I think that's true of the other 345 commissioners across the district. So it helps. I think what we found that it helps to have a digest of these matters that you can absorb in about a minute or 2 minutes time. And if you see something of interest, you can then take the additional time to go read the resolution proposed by Ward 7 ANC and say, oh, this is something we really ought to get behind. And at that point, you're spending the time because you believe the issue is important, to do it in some abstract way because, well, maybe there's something important there. That's asking an awful lot of people who work a 40, 50, or 60-hour week doing other things besides being a commissioner.
And I was a commissioner for 3 terms. I didn't even know there was this mayor's portal. So if I don't know, how is a regular person on the street going to know? I mean, this is an OANC function that you know, I thank you. I mean, you're doing an amazing thing, but you shouldn't be doing it.
Well, I get one of the Commissioner Simplewitz, at some point you'll be able to retire, at which time you can decide how you want to spend the 60 hours of work time in your work week. And this is how I spend my time, and I have a good time doing it.
Commissioner
I'm a
Horn.
strange character.
Thank you.
I've tried to get information from the mayor's portal, and it is such a poor resource that you really need someone like Chuck to go and dig into what the resolutions really are, because the summaries on the portal are mostly useless. Yeah, I think that this would be a great resource to hopefully convince people that this should be done for the benefit of everyone and done by OANC or somebody else.
But I think we need to spend our money only if we think this is a benefit to 3D.
I'm going to do a plug for wanting this just for our ANC. I mean, the work that we have done, Bernie, when we were talking to the ZA about single family home zoning. Well, that's Ward 3 and Ward Ward 7 have most of the single family home zoning. Like they could be having these same problems over there and we just don't know it. I, for one, would love to use this to, it might help us with our testimony during oversight hearings, budget hearings, all of this. We might find out that there are similar problems in other parts of the city that are similar to us.
Madam Chairman, thank you for that comment. And I would just make one point to make sure my colleagues understand, and this responds to Commissioner Simkowitz's concern about my time. I wrote this resolution in terms of doing this on a periodic basis. My initial idea was to do this on a monthly basis. I'm asking for flexibility on the part of my fellow commissioners to find what is a practical use of my spare time. And I may do it, well, at least every quarter and maybe every month. But if you give me that flexibility, I appreciate it. I think most of the ideas that we will find, even if they're on a quarterly basis, are still problems with the city in the next quarter. Most of these problems that we would be concerned about, as we read about, are not going to be solved in the next month or two. And if they are, maybe they don't need us. So I'm looking for the problems that we might find identified in these resolutions that are long-standing, that we may want to get involved with. Illegal construction, for instance.
Are we ready to call the question? All right, all those in favor of the digest proposal? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Next up is the budget draft, which, Catherine, could we get that popped up?
So I will stand and request a second. That's interesting, Catherine. That's so wonky. But it is up here. If you open this, Catherine, in Excel, can you get it to display properly? Just above the words FYI 25 proposed, there's open in. Down, open in. Yeah. You should be able to open in Excel. Yeah. So colleagues, I ask for a second on the budget for fiscal year 2025, and if you would expand column K, please, Catherine. I don't know how it got sort of smushed up like that. But we had discussed this during our previous meeting in September. As a reminder, our inflows of revenue to the commission come in the form of the district allotment, as well as really de minimis interest. I would love to get us into a high yield savings account, but that would mean changing banks with the district owning our, having to have their name on all of our bank accounts becomes really challenging. So I'll let my successor tackle that if he or she wishes. But I'll stop before we have any discussion about the budget just for a second on the resolution.
I'll second that.
Thank you. So just a quick review. District allotment is our intake, and then our outflows. The largest is our steadfast ANC administrator, which this $13,000 does reflect the extra $1,000 that Commissioner Elkins requested for the digest. I have allowed some in-person meeting rental cost if we find that as a commission we want to go back into in-person meetings. I did allow money for space rental. Obviously, if we don't meet in person, we don't pay that. In the communication line, the largest component of that is the district Engage software, as well as Zoom, Dropbox, Squarespace or wherever we host our website. And then the last large bucket is around purchase of service. We have found in past years, not so much in this fiscal year that just closed, but in the past we have engaged the services of attorneys, traffic studies, engineers, etc. And this just puts that money into the budget so that we can engage those professionals. I'm happy to answer any questions, Commissioner Elkins.
I certainly do support the amounts that are shown here. I wanted to suggest a couple of edits to the right-hand column just to give us some flexibility. One would be, I think we are no longer, I hope we're no longer paying for Zoom. So we might want to take that out. If I'm
That's
correct
right,
about
because that went to the district now. You're right.
Yes, I think the district is now paying for that. Thank you, OANC. The other is on the words district engage. Would you be willing to change that to engagement software? And that way we're not tied to a particular contractor.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I think this is a budget we should support.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right, I have accepted Commissioner Elkins' suggestions as a friendly amendment. Catherine and I have updated them in the spreadsheet on OneDrive, so that's all ready for you to go. Mr. Elkins, another?
I thought of one more thing. Would you be willing to add the transcriber into?
Yes. He is in there, but I will add the
yes,
words for it. Yes.
Right. So it's explicit. OANC knows that we are approving the idea of having a transcriber.
Yes, absolutely. Okay.
All right, without anyone else raising their hand, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of approving this budget as amended in the notations? It passes unanimously. Next up is the 2024 annual report. And I am listed here, but I would like to really hand this over also to Commissioner Elkins. We really went all out with the annual report this year. I don't know if you all had a chance to look at it, but Commissioner Elkins and our administrator, Catherine, and Commissioner Horn all contributed to this along with myself. And the idea was that if someone came up and asked you what does an ANC do, or what does ANC3D do, you could hand them this report and they could read through it and they would just be wowed by it all. So I'm going to start with a motion. Motion on the floor is to approve our annual report. Is there a second? Commissioner Davis seconds it. Commissioner Elkins, would you like to add anything?
Well, not much, except that one of the motivations among all of us, I think, who did work on the actual editing of this is we did have an excellent 2 years, particularly the last year of this commission, and that for a couple of hours worth of work here and there, it's worth getting that down on a piece of paper so that we don't forget it and that we can tell others as appropriate. How many people will read this report? Not too many, but we may use it in other circumstances. You don't have to write new stuff then if you want to tell people what we've been doing. So, and I do think it's good to, of course, this report goes to OANC. It also goes to the council, in particular Robert White and Matt Fruman, who I think, it's important for them to know what ANCs are doing. So that's the purpose of the extra effort, and I hope you found as you read it that it was both accurate and good.
The only thing we need to add at the end is the budget versus actual picture of the financial. Right now, it is not updated, so we'll have to update that.
Yeah, my apologies. I have the budget, but the OANC, the portal does not include the year-to-date numbers, so I will need to calculate those individually. So I'll have that this week and we can finalize that.
When are these due?
Um,
Due date?
well, they're supposed to be produced by the end of this month, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought I remember November 1st.
I think if we transmit it this month, or even next month, I think we're in good shape. They will be surprised that we have such a good report and have one on time.
We're going to be like the teacher's pet of annual reports.
By the way, Madam Chairman, this is just an extra piece of information, but I am sort of goes with what we've been doing over the last year. I have circulated the idea to other ANCs in Ward 3 that we have a meeting of all the commissions and of members of the commission, not to violate the quorum rules, of all the commissions in Ward 3, together with Matt Fruman's office, no later than early in November, to talk about transportation in particular. That seems to be a common issue across all the ANCs. And the main purpose is to prepare for the oversight hearings, which are coming up very fast in January. And so we will be inviting DDOT to the meeting. This is not a secret meeting, but and also I hope Ms. Cousin to attend. But the idea is to see what are the common issues across Ward 3 and what kind of issues do we want to raise at the oversight hearings. My favorite one is the Transportation Safety Input Program, which has absolutely no input from ANCs. But anyway, that's just to give you a flavor of it. So I digress, Madam Chairman, but I don't think we actually voted on the annual meeting, so I got in the way.
Or the annual report. All right, all those in, did we? Yeah, we did vote on all those in favor of approving the annual report. Thank you. Passes unanimously. Approval of the minutes. Motion on the floor is to approve the minutes. Commissioner Nowak seconds it. Does anyone have any comments? I'm just going to say without objection, the motion is approved. Minutes approved. We are officially noticing our next monthly meeting is November 6th. How does everyone feel about keeping things virtual? I am 100% on board with the virtual. Okay, great.
I think that virtual works very well with our constituents because they don't have to go to the meetings. I would prefer that we meet in person, but we would have 3 people in the audience, and that doesn't work very well for community engagement, especially if we didn't have the Zoom feature. So, while I think in person is better than virtual in general, we've done a good job with virtual. And I think that, because of that, I think we should keep with it.
It could also be that if we have a big issue like we did with the apartments, we had a special meeting in person, it was well attended, we can adjust. All right, without any without opposition, the meeting is adjourned.
Before 10 o'clock.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you all very much.
Well
Thank you,
done.
everyone who's still on. I see your thumbs up. Hope. Thank you. All right. Good night.